So welcome everyone to the next episode of the Catributors podcast. Today's guest is ViirtualSenpai, that I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing. And do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, hello everybody. I'm Senpai. I am a World of Warships streamer, still community contributor. I know a little bit cringe there, but you know, things happened and I had to think about it. I'm currently based in Canada, so North America. Most of my content is on Twitch. However, I do occasionally upload to YouTube. I'm part of the 007 QQ7 community. Some of you may know us from King of the Sea, the Verizon Champions tournaments. 29 years of age, and yeah, just kind of going through life, doing whatever I can, enjoying the summer now that I can actually kind of take a bit of a step away from ships with this whole debacle that's happened recently. But yeah, it's an honor to be here, and I'm excited to be on this podcast. It's the second one I've done this week, but it's always fun to talk about new things that have happened in the community, and just talk ship, for lack of better phrasing.
Yeah, and we actually get to talk about ships at first before we move to, I guess, the more community-related stuff.
Yes.
There are some new ships announced for 10.9.
So yes, we have 2 Tier 9 battleships, and we don't know what they're going to be available for. But one British and one Italian.
Oh, I was watching the dev blog this morning, and a lot of my clanmates were actually they were kind of having a few giggles about what exactly these two ships are. So, in practice they look kind of cool, but we'll have to see what happens. There's a couple things that I want to talk about with the Italian, but we'll get to that in a moment, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if we start with the Marlborough, which looks like a turbo KGV, basically. It's got
I do like the
turrets
camo though.
all around. Is that 4 quad turrets? It's hard to tell if it's 2 turrets at the back. It looks like 4
16,
quad turrets.
356 and 4.
Oh, it literally says, yeah, that's
Yeah.
16. So if it's the same AP and HE as the King George V, I mean, the thing talks about it having good concealment and fast reload time with a decent range. So it doesn't look like it has a catapult, but it will be at Tier 9, so you do have the option of getting some extra range through the equipment. But yeah, I think this one is going to be a turbo HE spammer if it retains the power of the KGV.
Yeah, you can see the stats down. There is like this arrow that you can press, shows the stats. So it only has 24% fire chance.
Oh, okay.
That's like Zao fire chance. Like Zao is like 20-21. Like that's extremely low for I guess British ships, because we all know like Thunderer, Conqueror, the Goliath, all having very, very high HE fire chances.
Not what I would have guessed at all.
Definitely not.
I'm just bringing up KGV now. That has got a 41% fire chance.
And it has 1.4 sigma.
Ooh, that's okay. This is going to be a British Leon then. 16 guns, complete shotgun.
But what's really curious is they're bringing 356mm guns into Tier 9, which is a little. It gives a little bit of food for thought, I guess. Like just looking at it, that's one of the lowest calibers for a battleship at tier, if not the lowest. But just looking at it, it just seems like all I gotta say is good thing this is a work in progress, because like it's just absolute. It just doesn't look enticing whatsoever. Like if they make this a free XP, a coal ship or something like that, I like with the initial stats right off the bat, I would just say a hard no.
Let's see. Does it have AP? Yeah, the AP looks very similar. The 25, like if just reading the description above, I would have expected this to at least have like faster reload than 25. I would have guessed 24 seconds or below, and with the fire chance of KGV, which is obviously wrong. It does at least have the penetration with those HE shells. But yeah, that is that's quite a low fire chance and quite a low hit Sigma. So maybe you're going to rely more on the AP shells, but 14-inch AP at that tier, you're practically a super cruiser.
Basically, yeah, I agree with that. Like, I would honestly think that if they wanted to make this thing at least a little bit interesting, give it improved AP, like improved angles or improved, like, you know how like the British light cruisers, so they get that
Yeah.
high pen everywhere AP. Give them something that's like reminiscent of that, not like identical, because the last thing we need is a battleship getting full pens on any and every angle, but just make it more interesting. This thing just seems like it's a lack of gimmick, and we've all known wargaming to be gimmick centered.
It doesn't even have anything special in its consumables. It just says damage control party, repair party. So no hydro, no defensive.
I think the only special thing is the amount of like guns you have, and that's it looks like that's a compensation of everything. So your shells are not great. Your signal sucks. Your reload isn't that great. Your fire change sucks. It's just like, well, you just make up with add more guns.
I mean, the firing range is at least good, 20.9 kilometers, and you will be able to get that higher.
Yeah, but you won't hit anything at that range.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be firing high explosive and basically not hitting anything. So.
Or hunting cruisers like the Scharnhorst would at tier 7. What's the concealment on it, by the way? Because I would think that a British battleship, which has no, like, we know the Thunder and the Conqueror to have like half decent concealment. I mean, Thunderer, I mean, that thing is, you basically may as well call it a stealth ship. It has great concealment, but if this thing has good concealment, I can see it sneaking up on people, which would be a huge bonus.
I mean, it has 15.4 base, so you get like 20% off with Motril and Captain.
That's worse than the Lion.
Oh.
And definitely worse than the KGV. So not that sneaky, to be honest.
All I gotta say is, good thing the little thing on the right at the bottom right is a thing. Good thing that is there, because holy moly.
Yeah. Well, the only thing where it seems to be better is it's nearly 31.5 knots speed, which is definitely ahead of the other British battleships. And what's the AA like? It looks like it has decent AA range. 6 kilometers is all right. I don't know about those DPS figures. Those don't seem.
I mean, it's not like you're gonna shoot down planes. Let's be honest. No matter what the stats.
I mean, if it had like a defensive and higher DPS, that might have been a thing that you could say about it. But it looks fairly average in that regard. 529.
It has 13.3 smoke fire penalty though, so it's a battleship that you could reasonably hide a bit in smoke.
I guess. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, a battleship in smoke, we haven't seen that since Supremacy League years ago, when smoke fire penalty was non-existent.
Yeah, sure.
But just looking at this thing, it's decidedly meh for me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, it just doesn't feel like it's, or look like it's a particularly like eye-catching development from Lesta.
It's definitely one of these ones that feels like more of a minor variation on an existing ship, and we do have premiums of various kinds in the game like that already. So yeah, I'm not super excited about this one. Even if it did come out with KGV's high explosive, that might not necessarily be a popular choice, having a high explosives firing battleship coming in at tier 9. So yeah, I don't know. Yes, hello, Sam.
I mean, if we don't see the full armor layout, for example, if it was like very well armored and you could maybe do something like, I mean, with 1.4 Sigma, you kind of have to turn this into a close range ship, or you will be severely disappointed, it feels like. So you'd need some way to make close quarters combat work, I think.
I'm just wondering what Leon 1.4. Let's see, Leon is 1.5. It's actually going to be worse Sigma than the Leon, although it might be better in other characteristics.
Goodness gracious. Like, just get what I think, just to make it, just improve it, give it better AP, give it give it a decent like non-British armor profile that isn't just soft armor everywhere that can be burned from front to back.
It does say less than ideal armor. So we don't know the exact layout, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be great.
Oh, we're gaming.
Oh, here's a fun thing. Leon actually has better fire chance on its shells as well by like 2%. Although less penetration.
We're gaming.
So it's in some ways worse than the Leon, 2 tiers higher. Excellent. Although at least it has a better turret layout than Leon. Leon is quite awkward in that regard.
Well, it's still in testing though.
Yeah, we'll see. These are preliminary. We'll see if it remains like that. So when we have
I do like the
Verdi.
camera.
Oh yeah, the camera's nice.
I think that's all it's got going for it, though.
Yeah.
The Verdi, you had something in particular you wanted to say about that. It does look very Vittorio Veneto, I have to say, in its whole form.
It, as the description goes, it says it was a battleship project that was developed in Italy by the Ansaldo firm in the year 1936. So it was definitely used the Venetos as a design, as a stepping off point, I guess. But for 9406s,
yeah, and HE. Actually, it does say HE instead of SAP.
And so there's one thing that was very interesting that was brought up in the World of Warships stream today. You'll notice at the bottom of the simple description for the Verdi, it has an improved exhaust smoke generator. That is an 80-second. Apparently, it's 80 seconds long without any modules. So yeah, so think about this. So I was discussing with Maltese Knight and a few others in 07007 QQ7, and we were looking at it and we were doing the math, and someone came up with full smoke modules and the flag. You get 100 seconds of smoke. Yeah, now imagine 3 of those walking down a flank together, hiding in smoke. If this thing can be secondaried, just think about the insanity. You'd basically getting a larger Napoli.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, that's actually comparable. I thought it was about the same of the Huang He, the crawling smoke. Only, obviously, it's fuel smoke, so you could go way faster than the Huang He. So, yeah, that could be interesting. I mean, it'll have that smoke firing penalty, so that's why it kind of heavily depends on if the secondaries are any good. Does it say what it has? A bunch of the 90 mils and 4
some 152s, I guess.
152s, yeah. Base firing range 7 kilometers, so you'd have to get fairly close.
The problem with Italian secondaries is, right, those 90s are never gonna pen anything. So those 90s are best. They can start fires, but they can't really do damage to basically anything. Which means you have 4x3 152s, which have a shit reload usually for the Italians. So those secondaries are probably not usable in any way or form.
Now that's implying that. Well, that's implying that they're HE. If they, for example, think about this: if they're if they go SAP, then we have a contender. If there's SAP. Like,
true.
Yeah, I agree. Those 90s are absolutely they're dog water. Like, they're terrible. They're like a waste of space. But like, if we give those things SAP, ooh, you can do some evil things.
I mean, the problem with this whole smoke rushing thing is that you're effectively blind, right? It's not like you have. Well, I guess you have a fighter for some brief spotting. But generally speaking, right, if you charge in with smoke, and that's a very long smoke that you can't stop, meaning you, like, a destroyer can just go towards you and you will only see that 2 kilometers, right? And you're just so screwed.
You would need someone spotting for you, like a carrier or something.
Yeah, definitely. You would definitely need spotting. Now, I'm looking at the picture. Now, I've got to ask both of you, does the Verdi look like it's sitting extremely high in the water? Because it looks like it's giving me Musashi vibes right now.
Kind of. Maybe a little higher than, say, the Rome War. It's kind of hard to tell without it, like a side-by-side comparison of the other Italians, but yeah.
I'll bring up I'm going to see if I can look at the Marco Polo side by side here. Just pull up this picture. Because to me, like, I'm used to having like the Roma and the Veneto just sitting very, very low. And to me, this thing just looks like, for lack of better phrasing, it looks thick.
It does look thick.
And
but
if it sits
it depends also where like they place the citadel and what armor protection there is around it.
Okay, so I've got the Polo and the Verdi side by side, and they look about the same. That's curious. I didn't think the Polo sat that high in the water. Color me confused.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you'd want a camera that you can move around, because I feel like the angle also is a role there.
And we know Wargaming's camera skills aren't exactly the best. If anyone saw the stream today, they put it on auto for the COTS show match, and it was bedlam in chat, more so than usual. But 406s, did it say what the Sigma is? Because we all know Marco Polo was terrible.
1.8.
Okay, so it's standard.
Average, yeah. 30-second reload, 36-second and turret traverse.
Yeah, good turret traverse. So definitely something that would work with Pro. I mean, it really just needs the armor to be a brawler. Although,
I think Sorry, go ahead.
The 80 seconds, right? I mean, usually in an Italian, you use the smoke just to disengage if you have in a bad spot or something like that, mostly, right? It's 80 seconds can screw you. 80 seconds can be an advantage, but a long duration can really screw you because you can't turn it off, right? So if you smoke at the wrong time and then they still detect you because they have a radar or something, or it's like, I don't know, because you blind yourself pretty heavily. It's not something that you want to do usually.
So it definitely would rely on a heavier armor profile than Italian battleships in the future. So I think if it did have heavier armor, it would definitely be much more of I think Wargaming designed this as a pushing ship. Like,
it seems like it, yeah.
Just because the long duration, like, is the smoke meta coming back? Are we going to see? Is this what they say the counter is to CVs? Is this what they think it is? Because if so, then okay, all right, guys.
We found a solution to CV spotting. Smoke for everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody gets any vision anymore.
Oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, like, I'm not overly impressed with these ships, but I do think the Verdi has potential.
It's certainly the more interesting of the pair, mainly because of that smoke generator.
But yeah, like, I think, well, if we had to guess though, what would these be made available for? If I had to guess, I think they'd both be coal ships, or one would be. Actually, you know what? Verdi would be Research Bureau. Marlborough would be coal. That's my guess.
Yeah, coal, or maybe some future shipyard event.
That could be a thing.
Hard to say. I think I haven't kept direct track of what their recent releases were. I mean, they are obviously probably trying to like have all resources, get new ships and from time to time. But I haven't kept track of what the last releases were for.
The last release, let me see if I can actually pull that up. It was, I think it was it Ragnar for Steel? It was the Ragnar for Steel, I think.
Everyone got a lovely shot of Sam's butthole there. Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
And then they haven't announced what Gibraltar will be for yet, but I think Ragnar was the most recent unique unique currency release with steel.
It's been a while since we've had a free XP ship. That's always a vague possibility, but who knows?
I do think though that Wargaming is pulling away from free XP just because this game has been out for 6 years now almost, and people have vast reserves of free XP. I know I have over, definitely creeping up on 2 million, but so I think that would just be, I think they would view that as a poor business decision. And I mean, but then again, we've known Wargaming to make poor business decisions in the past. So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, indirectly, research bureau ships are free experience ships, right? Because like the research bureau is for the most part just the free experience train.
like, then again, we already do have a tier 9 battalion in there, but then again, have we? Wait, yeah, we have seen battleships. What am I saying? We have Slava. Goodness, I was about to say, like, this could potentially be research bureau, but well, I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. In other news, there are some new informations about patch 10.9. And interestingly enough, it seems like Wargaming has decided to release the German battleships before the Russian carriers, even though Russian carriers entered testing first. Maybe they have decided to just give a break for carriers. I don't know.
Or
maybe they
loves carriers so much, so obviously that was going to be such a popular line that they've decided to hype it up even more by holding it back for longer. That's totally the reasoning.
Wargaming relenting? I mean, I was discussing this with A10 before we went live, but I think the reason why they're delaying it is because of the King of the Sea announcement or something like that. We all knew that they were coming. We all knew that they were coming. And now apparently they're adding CVs. So
I mean, it's also possible that they always planned to have a longer testing time for the Russians because they felt like carriers just need more testing. Because it was curious that so shortly after the Russian announcement, they announced the Germans, right? Before the Russians, I think, even entered testing, they already had the Germans announced. So it seemed like it seemed weird at the time. So maybe there was something pre-planned there. And they just always decided to just give the carriers more time.
I mean, there is the completely wild idea that maybe they have something in mind for more kind of global carrier changes, maybe. But that's why they're delaying the Soviet CVs. But that's a bit out there. That's just pure speculation.
Wargaming listening to their community? Oh, no way.
Who knows?
I mean, I would welcome another CV rework. I would welcome that, because
I mean, there is a section on it in the the whole message for the community part that we'll get to. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. Like, why put out a line just before if you've decided to make some changes, why would you then put out a line that you then have to make extra work for, kind of thing?
I mean, at least they're bringing back something consistent. The Halloween event. This is nice. I mean, have they even added any new camos?
They've added what was it, the Intanian fleet camos for some new ships, it looks like, that haven't had those kind of camos before. Personally, I don't like those camos that much. They're a bit too busy.
They're very steampunky.
Kind of, but I don't know, I just feel like they've got too much stuff on them. I mean, I'm not particularly impressed with either of the new German battlecruiser permaflages either, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole aesthetic though with the Intanian fleet though. I mean, if they're going for the steampunks are supposed to be busy, like overtly complex. Like I guess like just pointlessly complex. Like it's supposed to do the thing that you're supposed to be doing 2 steps and 8 steps. So I mean, I can see the aesthetic that they're going for, but yes, they are busy.
I mean, I do like steampunk camis, I have to say. I'm not sure why it needs to be like you have basically a lance in front when I'm looking at the hipper there. So definitely feel like the hipper should get bonus ramming damage with that cam.
Yes, I agree. Oh, but it is a rather nice. I mean, I like the brass, but as PHJ said, it's a little like there's too much going on, especially on the turrets. On the turrets, and like the little section, that brass section, and like right by, I think it's A turret. It's like what's the point of that? But then again, I guess I'm just answering my own question. It's supposed to be like pointlessly complex.
I also wonder if there are any effects like with the Tirpitz steampunk camo from many years back, right? There's a lot of electricity, like you have these Tesla thingies. And I wonder if anything here lights up or is doing stuff.
I mean, if it was really steampunk, you'd have extra spurts of steam coming out of various bits.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
And kind of
maybe
reciprocating flywheel things everywhere.
Yeah, like I think if maybe we'll get torpedoes like you know how the arpeggio ships will get that. They had the Kleinfield torpedo detonations. Maybe we'll get some special torpedo animations in this camo. Who knows?
Maybe.
I mean, they do have the Kitakaze as one of the and the Senyang as one of the as 2 of the ships that do get this camo. So maybe.
Yeah, but the Iowa gets it too.
Yeah, I think of those, only the Iowa and the Implacable don't have like ship torpedoes. Obviously, Implacable does have aircraft torpedoes, but yeah, everything else does have capability of dropping torps. So this is all going to be going sort of like there's the 2 operations, but there's also going to be a Twilight Hunt battle mode, which will be, it says similar to the Big Hunt battle mode, and I think we've seen that particular aesthetic with the weird floaty blocky things in previous ones.
Yeah, and I mean, key battles were basically the same thing, right? Just looked a bit different.
So basically fighting the bots and fighting other players.
They say that this time you can enter the battle on monster ships. I wonder if you're then in a different, different sort of well, I mean, I guess you're already fighting each other anyway.
But probably
I doubt you can play on a monster
ships
team,
as
right?
they've done in previous ones. Maybe you have to unlock them through stages or.
And there will be normal, hard, and super hard as difficulty.
Yeah, that's. I don't think they've done that before. That might be new.
Like just having that super hard difficulty. I think I think there was only 2 difficulties in previous years.
Yes.
So now they're giving us like it's so funny how, I mean, we'll talk about ops later, but it's so funny how they're like, okay, you know what, we're not gonna, and then all of a sudden they're just giving us a super hard difficulty. I wonder what their definition of super hard is.
Well, the hard version of Sunray in the Darkness, I remember being pretty tough to complete. There's a cat knocking everything over here. Hello, sir. I'm ignoring you. Is super hard going to be at that level? And then the new hard level is going to be a little easier than that? Or is super hard going to be harder than the previous hard level is, I guess, the real question.
I mean, that if it's super, super hard, I can see if it's harder than last year's, then
you would have to do it with a group of people you could communicate this with. There's no way you could do it with randoms.
I mean, even so, if you were like, I was doing it with clanmates, and we were even struggling. But then again, we're PvP players. We're not PvE players, so we were doing things that we maybe shouldn't have been doing.
I mean, it's nice if they make a challenging PvE mode, right? For those people who want to, right?
It's just nice to have something other than the same 5 ops over and over again. Even if it's just
Agreed.
Halloween.
But these camos, you mentioned them earlier on the Brandenburg and the Prince Heinrich. I do think I like the Brandenburg's bow. I really like it. It's very out there. It reminds me of the Vladivostok perma camo.
Yeah, it's fine. It's the coloring I don't particularly like, the way they've done that. I don't know, just something about it is just like, ugh,
It's very
doesn't
out
work for
there.
me.
It doesn't. To me, it doesn't scream Kriegsmarine. It's or that era in Germany, where it's kind of like you see the red and the white and the black, but the yellow, like the yellowish gold, where does that come from?
It
Yeah.
doesn't quite fit, I think. I mean, it looks alrightish, but I think they could have made it look color-wise. The Heinrich, on the other hand, is just, I don't know. I don't like that.
If you were going to
think
go
if they
for a
got-
more World War One themed, like special German permacamos, surely there'd be. I don't know. I think it just feels too kind of generic, and apart from that eagle head bow, there's not really anything that sort of distinguishes them. To be honest,
There's like a little trim that goes along the
Yeah,
the top side of
yeah.
the freeboard, but that's
Kinda-
about it.
oak leaf.
Yeah, like
kind of
I
thing.
think if they put some iron crosses on it somewhere, it would look a little nicer. Like you know how on the Richelieu camo, that kind of like goldy, they have a, I can't remember, is it gold fleur de lis on it? I think that's what they have on the
question.
side. But I think if they did the same thing but put iron crosses on the side of the Brandenburg, I think it would have been a nice touch, because like we were talking about the Halloween camos being too busy. I don't think this
Mhm.
one's busy enough for the amount of extravagance that the Eagle has.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if it was up to me, I'd have done something themed around like maybe the Imperial German crown jewels, or the various insignia or crests or whatever, because that's the thing that sets these apart from the battleship line, apart from obviously them being then battle cruisers, is that these are definitely all firmly in that World War One era. This is firmly Imperial Germany, and you could have had something quite unique on that basis. And instead it just it looks very kind of slapdash. I mean, comparatively low effort compared to some of the other really nice camos we've had.
You know,
It
dare
looks
I
like-
say it?
Yep.
Art department, you let us down.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like they just ran out of money halfway through the ship. They started with a very nice like figurehead on the top, and then there are like those feathers or so that come out, and then you have the trim going there, and then like after the second turret, they're like, well, the budget's gone now.
We could have had like orbs and scepters and gems and like gold filigree and all sorts of cool stuff, and instead
I gotta say, that was absolutely perfect. They ran out of money. Wargaming running out of money. Where's the loot box money?
You find the second half of the camo in a loot box.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
at least there's the positive thing of maybe people are going to look at these and be like, yeah, I'm not going to bother with the preview event so much then, because these kind of special perma camos are usually firmly tied to the preview event.
Oh yeah,
and then
I mean, the ones for the new German destroyers were kind of disappointing as well, but at least they were more kind of Iron Cross thematic.
weren't they like the
at
same
least-
Iron Cross we already had for like the Pommern and so?
Oh, those ones were those ones were just, they were simple and effective. Like looking at the Pommern with that camo, it's just like, you know what? This is a nice ship. This looks nice.
Yeah.
And I think if they added like like they gave that camo to the Brandenburg and just added the golden eagle on the front, or like even a silver eagle, it would look nice.
Honestly,
Like-
if they took the Brandenburg and made the majority of the ship black and gave it some nicely placed gold trims together with that golden figurehead, that would look nice, right? You'd have like mostly a black ship, just maybe in the turrets and so some gold trims, and then that golden figurehead with like the gold a little bit off that towards the center. That would look classic.
It would look classy. It would look sharp, effective, and it wouldn't look like you're trying to get yourself hit like with this red that they have on the bridge. Oh, like that just says, "Shoot me, take me for all my damage." Oh, and as a cruiser player, I salivate when I see targets like that. But at least the commemorative flag and the patch, they don't look too. I mean, they're nice. They at least keep that simple theme. And then the ways of obtaining these will be announced later as they show a loot box. Okay. See, like all this talk and nothing's changed wargaming.
But they made the loot box look nice, right? The loot box is better designed than the camo, to be honest.
Which is kind of surprising. I'm not even going to lie. I mean, they at least put an iron cross on it. So, like, if they took this loot box and put it on the ship, quite literally this loot box with maybe a little bit less gold, it would have been fine. But I guess no. I guess not.
Oh, I managed to get myself timed out in the chat there.
Oh, do you need permission for a link?
Apparently.
Here we go.
Right, so yeah, that kind of, I'm just doing a quick Google, and you imagine something like gold edging and kind of a red velvet sort of thing, and gems studded in, and a little gold cross on the top of the main mast, and that could be a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I think that would have been much more, I guess, extravagant and much more, I guess, eye-catching. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's if you go back into the a little bit further back, it's not just like the German imperial crown, but you've got all the different states, like Bavaria and Prussia and Saxe-Coburg and the crown of the HRE, and plenty of things to choose from.
I mean, on the bright side, at least we get Hamburg, which I must say is quite a nice looking port. I like the way this looks. And I guess maybe that's what they were going with the red and the camo. Like they're trying to get it to match the port.
Hamburg, yeah, it's already quite nice. So the fact that they're going to give it a little dress up and maybe a little spruce. I think Hamburg was the first big kind of city port that we had that looked properly nice. Although, did London precede it? I think London preceded it, but London looked kind of naff at first.
New York was New York. We just won't mention it. I mean, they did it up for Christmas, but I mean, it's New York. But I guess that's where the red came from. I mean, what is that? That on the top right picture, what is that? Is that an aircraft carrier?
It's a giant. It looks like a giant, like wooden cutout of something. Yeah, it's odd. It looks like it's half painted if you open the picture in a new tab.
That is so weird. It is
cardboard cutout. Yeah,
it is a cutout. You can see on the bottom with like it's being held up. Yeah. Oh,
it is kind of odd though.
It is very odd, and I would go as far to say as it makes the port look trashy. Like if you want to celebrate an event, in World of Warships, you got to make the port look nice. It's got to go off without a hitch. It's gotta shine. It's gotta have like no blemishes, and this is a rather large blemish. So again, I think we'll go with Atem saying I think the art department ran out of money halfway through.
I don't know. I mean, I still think the port looks nice though.
Overall, it's nice. It's just that one that wooden section is just
I don't think I'll be using it.
Oh no. Unless they fix that, maybe I'll use it.
So aside from the German battleships and the Halloween stuff, we also have a temporary weekly event called Naval Records, where it says the goal is to earn as much base XP as possible. The event rules are similar to naval battles. Each player will have access to a list of classes, nations, and ships they can take into battle. Completing the objective will give players German tokens, coal, and enable the player to take another ship into battle. So it seems like just a themed variation of the recurring naval battles.
Except there's no
Yes.
limits. There's no limits, and it refreshes once a week. Oh, there's no limits. That's actually interesting. What do you guys think about that?
I think they said something that they wanted to make something like the naval battles, but for people without a clan, so that everybody can participate.
That makes sense. I think that's really cool, though. Like, no limit on the number of attempts. I can just see like the inter-clan competitions where people are just aiming to get as much base XP as possible and have it recorded, just to see how high they can get.
Presumably, the tokens it mentions will be used towards the preview event or the
Probably.
part one. So it's nice to have a way to earn those, I suppose, by playing the game, or have an extra way to earn those. Presumably, there'll also still be missions for earning those. So we also have. Sorry, what do you want to?
I was just going to say asymmetric battles are coming back too.
Oh yeah, that's what I was just going to bring up. Yeah. So this one does sound quite interesting. It's something that's been tried in World of Tanks previously, and I can't remember if it's been mentioned in previous dev blogs or something.
I mean, it's something that is so hard to balance that it usually doesn't work very well. So we'll have to see how well it works this time. I don't have
high hopes, but it might be vaguely fun to try as a temporary thing.
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably play it a few battles, and then it depends on how well it's balanced, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I think, like, the 5 to 7 to 9 to 12, like, I'm not sure if the 2-to-1 the almost 2-to-1 ratio would work, just because, like, what if everybody takes tier 8s that have, or like premium tier 8s, like, for example, like the majority of line ships at tier 8 for cruisers don't have a heal, but the premiums do, and everyone just brings like an Atago, Prinz Eugen, or Tone, and they just burn tier 9s down. It's gonna be a crapshoot. It's either gonna go really well or really horribly.
Honestly, I think there is maybe an interesting way to do lower tiers versus higher tiers in a game mode, but I don't think this is it necessarily.
Didn't we try historical battles before? I think that was a thing, wasn't it? Or am I thinking of World of Tanks and War Thunder?
I think they tested them, but never put them on the live server because they figured out that if only like one team has raiders, it's not gonna work so well.
I think if they did that, they'd have to disable certain consumables, or just modify certain consumables in order to make it work and make it be balanced, so that there's a chance that like one team can either follow history or the other team can rewrite history. I think they would have to. It would just be a whole nother like mess of coding. But honestly, I would like to see like some form of historical battles come back.
I mean, historic battles would make more sense probably in a scenario form, right? Or an operation form, which obviously they don't want to do.
I mean, that's all on wargaming, though. I mean, they've got to. I mean, people want these things, but they've got different ideas, I guess.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's always trying to make these things fit into existing systems rather than, like, if you're starting from the fresh, you probably could make some kind of historical lineup mode. But if you're trying to fit all the existing different national flavors into it, then it gets tricky.
I mean, also the problem with anything where you stick absolutely to history is that the number of ships that participate is very limited, right? So you need to have exactly the ship that's there, and you need to exactly one person for this ship, which limits matchmaking a lot. Unless they would just give you a ship that you don't have, just for you to play in this battle.
And
Because
that's
otherwise,
why World of Tanks kind of ran into problems. Everyone wanted to be the Tiger. Nobody wanted to be the T-34 with the 76mm.
Yeah, but like also World of Tanks, I think they have specific tanks that you had to go in, or did they give you still an option, right? Because if you want like an actual historical battle, you'd have to be like, okay, this side has exactly one of this ship and one of this ship and one of this ship, right? And not an option. And that makes queuing just like really problematic.
Nightmare, yeah. I think it was definitely. I think for World of Tanks, it was like, okay, you could only queue in these amounts, and then it was very specific. So that would be a queue time nightmare, and we've already seen quite a few of those with subs being added to ranks. I mean, I think it was Gaishu was in gold, and he was queued in a submarine for about an hour and a half, and he streamed the entire thing.
Okay.
Did he like sit and read a book on stream or something?
Honestly, he probably could have. In brawls, I think that is what it is.
Yeah.
Yet they have no details for the brawls yet, right? It says with the 8 ships, but it doesn't say how many, right?
It doesn't say how many, but I mean, I guess that's really just it. I mean, tier 8s. I mean, tier 8, in my opinion, is one of the more balanced tiers, just because like you go up and down. But at tier, it is pound for pound, probably I would dare say the most fun. So that's going to be a good time, hopefully.
It depends on the number of ships, right? I like the brawls where you have like 3 or 4 people only and not a lot of people.
And you just like ram your entire team down the middle of two brothers.
Exactly. You just play 3 versus 3, you press W at the start of the game, and whatever happens, happens.
I'm going to let our cat out real quick, so keep chatting. I think we're almost done with this page.
Yeah, I think basically.
And then there's a big a big win for wargaming here with the ship stats. They actually show you what's activated, which is so nice.
Oh,
it's so nice. This is perfect. Like we get to see what is happening. Like if a passive skill has activated, we get to see how far in adrenaline rush we are. Like what our percentages are. They're giving us information, which is
it's a shame that it took so long, but it's finally coming.
I mean, better late than never, but I feel like it's almost too late. It's almost too late.
I mean, I feel like things like that, if you introduce like an entire new skill system, right, and with skills that activate on certain conditions, then you should have a system like that already present, right? Because this is really like industry standard to see which skills active.
Exactly.
And that
100%.
it takes them this long just shows that they haven't properly planned. Like they are fixing their mistake now, right? They are not, in a sense. I mean, they're adding a feature, but it's not. It's like they're fixing a mistake they committed months ago, in a sense.
Yeah, like it's wargaming is living in 2012, while the rest of the gaming industry is current day, if not going past that bleeding edge. We should have this stuff by now, and it's just it's silly how slow they are when it comes to acting either proactively or reactively. Like we saw even with the CC drama a few weeks ago, them came up with a statement in 18 minutes and it took them 3 days. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing how they, one, can't read a room, and two, they don't think outside the box. They just kind of like want to throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks.
I feel like often they just are maybe disconnected from gaming in general a bit, or from like the game, because like base features that you'd expect, they don't seem to understand that those are actually base features you'd expect and how important they are. They look at this from a perspective from like, for them, it always feels like, so, oh, you want to see what skills are active? Yeah, this is a minor thing that like 5 people want. Yeah, we'll add that when we come around to it. And they don't feel like, oh, this is a massive feature that a game should have and it's missing, right?
Like, I think it was someone pulled the data, and I think it was I don't remember. It was either one of the office or the devs in general, but it was like there was like 300 total games played over like the last like month or 2 months or something like that, And to me, that just proves how disconnected the company is. Like they've done, I guess, some good things, but I don't even know if those are good things because I mean, the community has been gaslit for so long. Are we counting common decency as big positives? Who knows?
Although I have to say, I haven't seen any of this data and don't know where it's coming from, but you have to be careful because often in a company like that, there are employees' accounts and they might have private accounts that they haven't made public, so you don't know what their nickname is. And if they play like at home, they might play with a different account and maybe this only work account. So since I haven't seen the data, I can't say how accurate it is or how suspect this is, but the game often feels like they aren't playing it or they are playing it on a very casual level.
Yeah, like 100%. I don't like again the data. Like it came from a pretty credible source, but I did not see the source myself. So again, it is not concrete.
It's
true,
not.
true,
You need to interpret data, right? It's if somebody, for example, were to pull all official employee accounts and add up the data, it doesn't tell you if they have like a private account where they play at home.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like what I'm saying is that my source, like I usually trust that source, but I didn't see the data myself, so I don't know if it's 100% true. But
I just mean that person could have made a mistake and not thought that through. Or so
I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah.
And then, oh goodness, we're getting another NC camo.
Yeah, I don't think many people are going to end up getting that one potentially.
I mean, I guess it's.
I like the skull and crossbones.
Oh! Take a look at the bow. Take a look at the bow.
Yeah,
it has a C emblem, like right on the tip.
Oh yeah, it does.
That's really nice. I think that is absolutely amazing.
That camo looks really amazing. Unfortunately, it's for North Carolina.
I mean, NC. I mean, feel free to disagree if you want, with me if you want, but I think pound for pound, it is the best tier 8 battleship overall.
Yeah,
there are others I prefer. It wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah, it's not a bad ship, mind you, but it's not really a ship that I'd actually take out for fun myself.
I just think it up tiers nicely because one, it has decent AA, two, it gets 406s, it's fast. I mean, sure, it doesn't have the greatest armor, but to me, it's a ship that it's basically just a smaller Iowa to me, which basically is a tier 9. It's like I like it personally. It might be my bias just having like the nice, I guess, accuracy. The shells are a little floaty, but we all know that to be American, an American trait. But I personally just I like I think after playing all tier 8 battleships, NC's just been so consistent. But what would you guys say is pound for pound best tier 8 battleship?
I mean, best is such a, like, the thing is, right, I like brawling battleships, and they're definitely not the best, right, because a brawling playstyle is already very subjective. But the most fun is definitely, like, Key, Bismarck, and Tirpitz are the most fun for me at tier 8.
I would have guessed, I guess best wouldn't be the best word, I guess the more preferred ship to play.
Yeah, I would take, like, a Bismarck, Tirpitz, and Key.
Although obviously, the best tier 8 battleship's clearly HMS Monarch. I mean, come on.
We can't. No one comes close to the Monarch. It's on a whole different playing field. No one can come close. But I do like that camo. It does look very, very nice. I think it's a nice homage to those who competed in COTS or those who are King of the Seas enjoyers. Though I think they could have taken it a step further and maybe applied like special camos for those who have, I guess, the medals, like color thematic ones. So for like the champions, they'd obviously have like the red and gold one, and for some people they would have the silver and kind of turquoise one. For the medals that show up when you get killed by someone or like to identify someone in port, stuff like that. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it's definitely good looking.
I think that. Ooh.
Yeah, that's just about it. There's also mention of a special anniversary port for St. Petersburg, for the 325th birthday of the Russian Navy.
And there are some German commanders with special voiceover.
Ooh, let's see. Can I see it here? I don't know if any of you have been to any of the CC summits when you were still in the program, but
I was never invited, sadly.
oh, sad. I'm so sorry, but like a lot of this, it's like there you can see like that we visited so many of these I guess like larger cathedrals, a lot of these areas that are actually in the port. They're just as beautiful in real life. That's all I wanted to say. They're just as beautiful. Like that bridge, I've crossed it. In the distance, there should be the huge naval cathedral that you can see. You can see it in the distance. It's just really nice.
Yeah, I've never been there, but
definitely.
looks nice.
100%. The Aurora is still in immaculate shape. But I think, gentlemen, I don't want to move on too quickly, but I think we can move into the meat and potatoes.
I think we can move to the important message for the community.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, overall, I'd say they are making the appropriate noises now. It remains to be seen how much of that actually comes true, but this is sort of the answer that we've been hoping for, at least, I would say. So, I mean, maybe there is some hope in the future, or it could just all be hot air.
I mean, I could see. I agree with that statement. Like if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. But is it a duck? That's my big question right now. Like all of this is great wording, but that's just it. It's just words. Will they go through and actually do all these things that they've said or apologized for? Like
it gives us something to hold their behavior up against, at least in future, and we can, see if their actions match their words.
I mean, it's not like we've never had statements where they promised us something and then went back on it. So we'll see. I mean, like, first they actually addressed monetization, which is already a good step because they came out and accepted that monetization is a problem for a lot of people, and they addressed this, right? And they actually promised, I think, that in the future, no more Lockbox exclusive ships. Around all new ships, if they're distributed mechanism, and there will be an alternative way to obtain them. Now, of course, we don't know if the alternative way will be that you have to book a ticket to St. Petersburg and then apply with a formal letter in their main office, which could be an alternative way to get it, but there will be an alternative way to get it, right?
I mean, that where they would specifically mention time gating, I mean, that's basically what happened after the whole the kickback against bundles, when we didn't see bundles going away. They haven't gone anywhere. You can still buy the very expensive bundles, but they did then go to a policy of sometimes, and not even that much recently, they tend to put everything on sale at the same time now, but they at least at first would have the bundle out first, and then you would have to wait a couple of days, which wasn't ideal. So it does kind of maybe indicate that they're at least thinking about maybe stuff will be exclusively available through lockboxes at first, and then you wait like a week and then it's just available.
Like the Missouri.
Yeah, so I'm not the biggest fan of that, but the fact that you will be able to just buy the thing you want to buy, that's that they're giving us that guarantee. If they go back against that, then we'll definitely throw it back in their faces.
100%. Like I think that's 100% the way to go about it. Like have a chance at getting it for pennies, but if you really want to, if you get tired of it, then just go buy it outright. I think that is the better business decision, and it's good to see that they've actually addressed this, because looking back when we had this whole debacle started with the loot boxes, it was just poor like even before the Missouri loot boxes, we had the Makarov incident, and it was just totally tone deaf. It was deceitful, and it was filled with lies. And I don't know how. I would really like to meet the marketing department, honestly, and see who's in charge and ask them, so where did you get your piece of paper that said you're qualified to do this? Because as a marketing major myself, we learned this in marketing 101. You have to be transparent with your consumers and your customers. You have to be in order to make money, you have to be as truthful to the customer as possible. You have to give them what they want. Like a happy customer will provide good reviews, and they will talk. And we were also taught that if someone has a negative experience, they are 3 times more likely to talk about that negative experience than they are about a positive experience. And so bad press spreads like wildfire. And it's easier to get that bad press, whereas good press, it doesn't spread as quickly given, but it is much more worth it to work for. And it's just it's really, really bad to see that like wargaming has just been so dumb, deaf, and blind when it comes to marketing.
Extremely stubborn is how I'd put it. Like
Very
stubborn
Russian.
to the point of boneheadedness.
I mean, I have to say it's just very video game industry in general, because it's just like in the last, I don't know, 10 years, the video game industry has moved more and more into psychological traps and shady gambling, and like the whole video industry in general just moves into this direction. And I've seen a lot of pieces on that, and I think there are like marketing seminars, and this is basically what they teach, I think, like video game developers these days, how they, just because it's so effective, right? Because they have realized that if they just, apply the right psychological screws or so, they get people to give them all the money. And if you just have no morals, then, it's probably a very effective way of making your money. And they are probably also not thinking too long-term on customers in a certain way. Because, once you squeezed out that money and that guy's broke, then you just move on to the next person, right?
Yeah, like they thought of was bottom line, and in the business world, bottom line is important, but it's not like the be all end all.
Yeah, you have to think longer term, not just short term, right? You have to think like, if you want to have a product around for like 10, 20, 30 years or so, you gotta think that you can't squeeze every customer that comes in, right? You need to retain some of them.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's just the way it's I lost my train of thought, but just making sure that like it's just customer retention is just so important. And the like from what I've seen with World of Warships players, the customer retention door has been replaced not just by an opening closing door, but it's one of those spinning doors now. You just see players coming in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, and it's sad, honestly. Like I've been in this game for 6 years now, and just seeing so many good people leave just because of poor marketing decision, it's depressing. But yeah,
It does. This kind of stubbornness, like, definitely say it applies to all tanks as well. So maybe it is a business culture thing. I don't know.
well, it's 100% a business. It's a business and corporate culture, I think. As we've all most of A-Time and I have experienced Sub-Octavian and others when in that Discord, and it is. Would you say it is definitely a corporate culture thing?
I don't know enough. Honestly, the most contact we had was obviously with like the community team, right? So I haven't had enough contact with wargaming as a whole and with all of the people working there, or with management, let's just say, that I could say what. But it's just like, I think like a lot of big companies run the same way, especially like gaming companies. So it's not like wargaming is in any way unique. It's just that it's the first time that we are like directly interacting with it, or that we are. That's the first time that I'm really invested in a game, I guess, where it really feels like it hurts a bit more, other than if you just like play a game in passing.
The fact that it's kind of telling to me that it really did take a whole bunch of CCs walking out before wargaming was like, maybe there is something to what these guys have been whining about. Maybe we should actually think about it rather than just being dismissive.
I wonder if that shitstorm has actually reached their bottom line. I wonder if they looked at the Missouri logbooks and they realized then after all this what possibly kicked up, it didn't sell as well, or if they just experiencing like a decline now in spending or in players or in something, because somebody has been reached with this whole, because like an answer like that is that's a big step for Wargaming, it feels like.
Yeah, I heavily suspect it's maybe not so much the CCs walking out as the single event, but then the press picking it up.
Possibly.
Right, we got PC Gamer, Kotaku, and for those of who were part of Foshgate, we got a Jimquisition episode. So
yes, and Angry Joe mentioned it as well. So these are fairly large outlets with reach, and there's the whole thing about bad publicity being better than no publicity, but is that necessarily true? If people have this association in their minds with, what are Warships? They see an ad on YouTube or whatever. Wasn't that thing I read about where they were doing predatory monetization? They're less likely to go and try it out themselves. They're more likely to have that negative association with it, and therefore not become a customer potentially.
Then next, they have finally said that they are going to publish all drop rates. But well, I've said they are working on it and will take some time, but our hard commitment is it will happen over the course of the next year. Now, Suboctavian actually clarified that a bit on stream. What he said is that they're setting themselves a hard deadline that within a year they want to do this. And what he claimed was that the reason why they can't do it so easily is because I think some laws in China or something that they have to look up. It sounded a bit weird to me. I have no idea what laws China has, but obviously they could just add the drop rates. Because essentially adding the drop rates means editing a text file and saying look, in the description, those are the chances, right?
To me, this is my thought, that there might be some legal implications, but the fact that they already do it for the console versions on the Sony and the Xbox store. I'm wondering if it means that maybe for the PC version they've decided that they're going to go away and recalibrate the odds on some of these boxes, or kind of rethink the monetization of
what I was thinking. Just the odds. I feel like the odds are so unacceptable for some of these things.
Yeah.
Where they're like, okay, you know what? We need to completely redo the odds on what these things are going to be. And then when these odds are eventually released to the public, I think a lot of us are going to be like, really? It's that chance? So what you're saying, Wargaming, is I was extremely unlucky. I think there's definitely something behind this timeline. I agree.
I would be highly unsurprised if they kind of recalibrated heavily the odds, but also the prices of loot boxes. So maybe the odds get to what are kind of visually more acceptable levels, but the prices of loot boxes go up.
I mean, it's entirely possible that they are investing in new statistics or new research and what odds are sell best. Because if you display the odds, you might want to sell more. If you don't display the odds, right, then you can keep the odds very low and sell a lot of boxes that way. But once you display the odds, there comes a psychological factor at how high do the odds have to be that people are actually incentivized to buy them while you still make money. Right. So it's impossible that they are investing now time and research into, how can we display the odds and still maximize our profit?
Because if someone sees 0.01% of getting whatever high tier premium, they're going to be like, I'm not going to bother. But if you have that be a more statistically what's statistically significant versus what people perceive to be statistically significant, I think it's probably exactly what you're saying, Atam, is that they're going to figure out what numbers are going to be palatable, what numbers are going to be potentially more attractive.
I think it would also depend on what is available within the loot boxes. So, for example, I'm going to use Azur Lane here as an example. So, we just had an event in Azur Lane, which was it was a rerun of the American event where we could get ships like the Intrepid. Let's see what else. I have to pull it up here. But there were a bunch of ships that were put in. They had increased drop rates. These were event exclusive ships, and a lot of the ships were 2% drop rate, 2% drop rate, but that is because that 2% drop rate made up about 20%, like 16 to 20% of the total drop pool. So it would not surprise me to see that like drop rates and crates for like certain ships, if they release like a multi-ship crate, like say for example the Santa crates, some ships are 2% drop rates, where others sometimes for Azur Lane, there's always the 2% like rate ups, and then there's the super rare one that's like a 0.5% where you have to keep drawing for it. It would not surprise me to see Wargaming go the same way as Yostar in this way, just because one, they have the partnership and the data's already there, and two, it's a tried and true way of gambling for building. And the thing is though, you in Azur Lane you can get building cubes for free, like you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you can also purchase them for gems, which is their paid currency. So it would not surprise me if Wargaming followed that kind of rhetoric.
Possibly.
Yeah, I suspect the whole legal whatever is just a smokescreen, and the real reason is they want to rejig things, and it's going to take them time to figure out what's still going to be profitable for them.
Yeah, I honestly think that they'll probably go with the 2%. They'll go with 2%. That's
which would be better than probably most of the odds, most of the drop rates for the good stuff in.
Definitely worse than Makarov.
Yeah. The next item is just a kind of, I don't know, apology-ish for Missouri.
Also, they increased
the line
bonus.
About, we should have known better. It's like, what the hell?
Like, yeah, you should have known better when like the community was yelling. They were quite literally like flicking you in the forehead, saying and like slapping pieces of bread on the side of your head and asking, "What are you?" And you should have said an idiot sandwich instead of a cold cut trio from Subway. Like,
yeah, I mean, the initial responses we got were basically, we're doing it this way, and that's it. That's the way things are. They were just really dismissive about it, and it took walking out. It took community backlash before we've gotten to this point. And I think it was a thing Conway said on the stream was, we really should have done this differently. It would have been really easy to avoid. It's like, we told you.
Yeah.
Imagine listening to feedback. Imagine listening.
Yeah, they are bumping. Probably the most significant bit about this little paragraph here is that they are bumping the 20%, which was already bumped up from 17%, to 30%.
Yes.
That is a pretty big bump. I mean, all things considered.
Yeah.
Like that is I think that is going to be more than welcome in the community, just because like Missouri was known for being that credit farmer, and now it's going to be even more so, which is wonderful.
Yeah, well, with the caveat of for existing owners, not people that have just bought the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, right, this would have been so easy to do because all you had to do was, for example, take Mouse's calculation that, where she was lied to, and be like, okay, what if we assume you had like this base earning and we had all of these flags, and then you just calculate the percentage for somebody who has all the flags mounted and make sure that in a good game they break even, right? This is very, very simple math. Then you come up with the percentage and then you slap it on. But they were so determined to make sure that it's average earnings that people, they always went in from the perspective, even though, first I lied about it, but internally their perspective seemed to be, we want Missouri people to earn the same on average, and people who just mount a lot of flags will just lose out. And even though we promised them they won't, we intend to make them lose out. Surprisingly, people weren't happy with that. Imagine that. But it would have just, if they had played basic math, to the problem. They could have come out with this percentage from the start. They would have kept the promise and people would have been happy, right?
It just like all like basically like this whole situation, like just starting from beginning to end. I've always wondered, wargaming can't or won't, and I'd always been like, okay, like they say they can't, but like it's just like a big won't on their forehead. It's like, oh, we can't do this, or you won't do this. It's like that's just it. It to me, like not doing the simple math, as HM said. It's laziness. It's just lazy. And
We've had to
if
drag them kicking and screaming to the point where it makes things right.
it's we shouldn't have to do things like that. We shouldn't.
I honestly wish the things had all gone better and that I was still a CC and getting all the free CC goodies, but you know.
I mean, I'm hoping that wargaming, like after all of this with the CC exodus, extends an olive branch to those who have left. Just because like they like now they're finally kind of realizing that, hey, we messed up and we've lost a lot of press because of these CCs leaving. If they would do so much as to extend an olive branch to these CCs and say, hey, we're sorry about not listening to you, like we're sorry this, that, and the other, give them the opportunity to come back if they so choose to, if they are satisfied with the actions that are being spoken about in this announcement, or they can just not. Like it would be the right thing to do. It would be absolutely the right thing to do. And honestly, I don't like, after seeing what I've seen in the last couple of weeks, I'm actually not sure about how many people would actually take that offer.
I mean, speaking personally, I don't think I would, because I left and came back once already, and I don't want to get burned again, basically. But I really do hope that all of this makes things better for the program generally, and for those that have remained in the program, and you know, is a positive thing for the game overall. It's just a pity we had to be dramatic about it to make it happen.
I mean, you see, a lot of those are long-term things, right? For example, like how are they going to change? How they're handling future events? How they're handling future logboxes? How they're handling the drop rates? And I mean, they stated later in I think this whole thing that they are reworking the CC program, right? And so a lot of it depends on what steps are they going to take, and what are they just promising, and what are they actually implementing, and so on. So, I mean, right now, I don't think anyone will take the offer if they said come back, right? It first action needs to be taken, and then you'd see it, right? If they actually change, I mean, I think a lot of people would be happy to come back, but first there needs to be actually change happening, and it needs to be like a good program again. I mean, it needs to be like wargaming needs to care a bit more about the game again, right?
Yeah, like of course, actions definitely speak louder than words, and only after change has been visibly seen in the public eye would I would like personally ask people to consider. Like if I were in wargaming's shoes, I would say, hey, like hold us accountable. And once we start doing these things in like the next year or so, you're more than welcome to come back. All you'll have to do is just message the community manager, and we'll get things sorted. Like, of course, we all want to see action because actions speak louder than words. These words are pretty loud, but the actions that come with them will speak tenfold.
Yeah. For example, when we go to Christmas and we see a Christmas crates and they'll have all the drops listed, and maybe there is a fair Christmas event with some free stuff, and we see that they are actually trying to implement some changes or listen more to the community, right? Well, I mean, I feel like Christmas is going to be a very important point where we can see already, do they actually mean what they said or not?
I just had a very, very interesting idea for a Christmas event. Now, like, hear me out here. Like a catch-up dockyard event where there is no specific ship, unless you have all the current dockyard ships. And if you missed one, you can choose one to catch up on or do depending on difficulty level. Like, for example, the Puerto Rico would be hardest, and then they could bring the Venom back in for like, okay, medium, and then like something like the Odin for an easy. What would you guys think of that?
Yeah, that would be. I think that would be. I mean, it saves them having to model a whole new ship, so it'll be a plus from their side. but also for a lot of players, there's like if they missed it or you came in the game later, there's just no way to get these ships otherwise. So yeah, I could see that being something that would be fairly popular with the community. Definitely. No, I personally, I don't have the Puerto Rico, so that's the one I would probably go for.
Yeah, I mean,
go for it.
They could even, like, then they'd have to actually model more things, but they could even expand it to other rare ships, all right? They could have an event where you could chase one of the rare ships in the game that's not currently available, or they could expand the list of certain ships that have been removed that, and you could, like, say, if for my dockyard, I want to go for this, right?
Mm-hmm. Or it's like a generic dockyard where you have to reach like certain points where it's like, okay, if you like say for example, congratulations, you hit the tier 8 level, you can either choose the Odin or you can keep going. Congratulations, you've hit tier 9, you can choose one of these ships or you can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting.
I think it would be super easy for wargaming to do, and all they would have to do is just make it so people could do that, and like you can obtain one ship for working hard for free, and then you can, I guess, if you're satisfied with the Christmas containers, you can buy those for the rest. Like that would be a smarter marketing decision. By the way, wargaming, if you hire me, I demand 6 figures. But I don't know. That's just something that kind of popped off the top of my head. Kind of maybe something
I
cool.
like that idea. Yeah, you should definitely stick that in the feedback channel for whatever that does. But somebody might read it and think,
I mean, they said that they're going to listen more to feedback now. It's like they have this whole feedback section there in their blog.
Yeah.
But imagine reading it.
We got a bit off on an aside there, but yeah, there's still a few more things. So the summer sale, I kind of apologize again for that wording mistake. It does interestingly say at the end there, we'll pay more attention to the positioning of such events. For example, many of you stated the term sale suggests direct discounts on in-game items. And this is something wargaming, not just Warships, but like World of Tanks as well, they've been guilty of for a really long time, in that whenever you have, summer sale or winter sale or whatever, it's not actually a sale. There's no discounts usually. And that's something where, at least with War Thunder, they do discount things from time to time, and that just hasn't been really a feature in World of Warships for a while. It used to have winter discounts on things, particularly, and I would save up doubloons and buy stuff for 20% off, 30% off, or whatever. But these days, the only way you're going to get that is if you get one of those random coupons that pops up from time to time.
Like for World of Tanks, I actually waited for the Type 59 to come back in, and I snagged that just because it was cheap. But yeah, like I've like this whole summer sale thing. Like when I think summer sale, I think Steam, like the 60-70%, and that was just not what was entailed with wargaming. Like
they're using a very different version of the word sale than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is actually a cultural Russian thing or so, but they have enough English-speaking people that would be able to, clarify that. It's like, if something is for sale, obviously you would expect it just to be sold, right? But if you say something sale, then it implies that you are putting it on a discount.
Yeah,
and that's just basic English, right?
On sale.
And the thing is, I could see that a person that's not so good at English is confused by that, but you have an entire North American division, right? I mean, it's very, like that's where back to communication issue. You have so many people you could ask that could clarify that for you, right?
I can only conclude that it's been a deliberate usage of that word to kind of give the idea from afar that, hey, look, there's some sale event going on.
To be purposely misleading.
Stuff. Yeah, none of it's actually discounted. So, yeah. But yeah, like I said, that's been a thing for years and years. So it's kind of interesting that they're actually throwing it in with all the other stuff they're talking about. So that would be a welcome change. The last thing on this list is the age ratings, which I think that's sort of announced separately. They've rolled it in with this.
Yeah.
The PEGI rating was 7 in EU, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something they talked about, particularly on the stream, that this has never particularly been a game marketed towards kids, that it's more intended for an older audience. But, it kind of seems like they're covering their bases and they want to deflect any criticism about this being a game where kids could get exposed to gambling. And to be fair, there's stuff like the football games that contain the gamble boxes that the AAA publishers put out.
Yeah, the FIFA boxes.
Basketball and American football and all the other like hockey and wrestling and all these franchise games. They're far worse offenders than this because they,
Yes.
a lot of them specifically are marketed towards a younger audience. And I think I kind of like this is more just them kind of tidying up a bit. I don't think this materially affects anything.
Yeah, I'd say this. I think wargaming never, in that sense, marketed really towards children because the game is like that. The gameplay is very slow. If you want to catch children, you'd want something faster paced. You'd want brighter colors. You'd want maybe comic graphics and so on. Like there are games that are much more directly marketing towards children with their adverts, with their presentation and so on. I think like wargaming they don't care if young people gamble in their game because it's not a downside for them, but they never really target them as the core audience because they know that they won't attract them. So that age rating probably won't affect them that much. And it's a good thing that they're doing it still, right? They didn't care, right? They were like, right, if those kids gamble in our game, well, we didn't really target them, so it's not our fault. Like it seemed like wargaming had this position that, maybe some kids gamble, but, it's not like we told them to come. We told the old guy to come and the kid just followed in. So not really our problem.
We have an important question from the chat, by the way, which I don't think we actually asked you about beforehand, but does ViirtualSenpai have a cat?
So I used to have a cat when I was very young. It's actually kind of a tragic story. When I was really young, we had a cat. His name was Pugsley. And absolutely wonderful cat, amazing. He knew when you were sad. He would come he would come cuddle you. He wasn't he was one of those rare cats that actually let you rub his belly without a cat actually clawing you to death.
Without turning into a death blender.
Yeah.
Basically. So the sad thing is, one day I had just gotten home from school. And my parents were like, oh, how's it going? It's like, I ask, where's the cat? Oh, he's outside. And he was an indoor and outdoor cat. And so basically what happened is all of a sudden we heard some screeching outside, down the block. And a car that was running away from something, got to get out of there. And lo and behold, our neighbor knocks on our door and says, hey, you guys should come see this. And my dad was like, stay here. My cat was basically killed instantly by that driver. So it was kind of sad.
That's very sad. Yeah, that's
the
peril of having cats that are outdoors at all.
Yeah,
one of our family pets growing up came very, very close to meeting the same fate. Luckily, she was okay, but she lost half her tail. It had to be amputated, and it kind of she had a phantom limb syndrome thing with her tail forever afterwards.
That's unfortunate. But yeah, I used to have a cat. Cats are wonderful. They're either super cuddly or they're always plotting to kill you.
Or both.
Pretty much.
Probably both. But my buddy, he does have this wonderful cat. His name is Nugget. And it's actually hilarious. They have full-on conversations. When I went over to his house earlier this summer, he lives a province away. He was having a full-on conversation with his cat, and his cat was physically pointing at things with his paw, and he would they had this conversation no, I'm not giving you that. Meow, 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 meow. No, I'm not giving you that. You're not allowed human food. And then finally ends up giving him a bit of his food. And then there was one point where he was hiding behind the curtain. It was during this heat wave, and because he was trying to find shade. And he pulls the curtain back, and you just hear Nugget just start screaming, meowing, just meow, put it back. I'm warm, I'm too hot. And he's just like, oh, sorry. But I have had my fair share of cat experiences, if not recent ones.
Good to know. It was an important thing to
Yeah.
know on this podcast.
You're at least an honorary Catributor.
Yes.
I mean, I was gonna say it is the Catributor podcast, so I've got to show up with at least some cat stories, right?
Yeah. Anyway, on with the topics. The next big section is feedback. And this is something I know a lot of CCs and former CCs have kind of had, I don't know if issues is the right word, but, complaints to varying degrees about the sort of attentiveness or lack thereof on Wargaming's part. And I know people out in the community might well feel the same way about how feedback is reacted to. And I always have the caveat when this kind of thing comes up that it's like even just watching what was being said in the chat earlier, that not everybody that has feedback to give has reasonable feedback to give. Some people just they want everything given to them for free, which is not obviously going to work in a free-to-play game because the game would sink without a trace, pun kind of intended. Or people wanting just completely unreasonable things, or people wanting things that are already strong to be completely overpowered. Or so it's I have some sympathy when it comes to like gaming companies in particular dealing with feedback, because you can't listen to everybody. But that said, I definitely think they have room for improvement.
That's so good, Miley.
I actually had this conversation about feedback with Maltese Knight earlier today, and we were of two different I guess trains of thought. But I mean, we both agreed. We agreed on the same point. We're just like going different ways about it. So it was kind of like chasing each other in circles. And so he was saying, well, like our feedback doesn't matter. It's like, well, they're saying that now that it's going to. So like it's like so, and he said like, oh, so people who think carriers are fine, their feedback should be well contributed to, or people who say like just like the most mindless dribble of feedback that doesn't 100% make sense just because they think it is okay, and they never got a second opinion on it. They think that's okay, and I'm just like, no, I'm just like, that's not okay. But you're not seeing what I'm saying here, and it's just like feedback like this, just them like listening, like actually like taking the effort to go and listen to, I guess, these feedback channels is huge. Like we see in the first point, we're seeing test ship Zhao getting some changes, which is a personal favorite ship of mine. I mean, I'm a Zhao enthusiast. I love that thing. And then Petro modifications, which is
the three that mentioned that and FTR as well. These have kind of been like the headline for ships that need some changes in some way.
I mean, I think when it comes to feedback and balancing, like it's not an easy process, obviously, but you need to balance from multiple sources, right? You need hard data, that obviously what Wargaming has, spreadsheets. Now you need to interpret them correctly. And then you also need feedback because there's some things you will never find in the data per se. Like how fun is it to play against something is not something you can figure out by staring at data, right? You actually need player experience. And then when it comes to feedback, you can take into account how good players are. And you can take into account how well formulated the arguments are, right? If somebody says feedback, this ship is too weak, that's not very helpful in that sense. That only might make you look, but there are some people who like have actual arguments and compare ships and be like, okay, so this ship has this armor scheme and this is a problem. Or if there are actual facts, if you have actual arguments in your feedback is backed up by that, then you can go through that. And what I was missing so much was actual discussion, right? Because if I provide feedback and I provide well argued points, then they could come back and be like, okay, we disagree with this point because reasons, right? And then you can figure out who is right. You can only figure out if you have two sides of an argument who is right if both are willing to like talk about it, right? And that's the problem. Wargaming was never engaging in this conversation, so you could never figure out actually like who is wrong. Like if they tell me I'm wrong, I won't believe I'm wrong, right? If I have actual arguments, they have to address my arguments and tell me where they think I go wrong, right?
And like that's where the mindless dribble comes in, because we like
Yeah.
I like the time where I looked in the feedback NDA and I see like, oh, like this ship is stupid. Like, for example, the FDR is stupid and should never been put in the game, which is a sentiment that a lot of us can agree with, but there's no reasoning after it, which is like, okay, well, all right, I guess. Like where are you going with this? Like, there's nothing there. There's no substance.
Although with the FDR, I have to say that's because I think so much feedback has already been brought up that if you have already written 2 pages of feedback about it and it wasn't listened to, then you're probably not going to repeat those 2 pages. You'll just it's still a problem, right? They're just trying to bring up what they previously wrote, I guess, in that case. It's more when it's a new ship where you haven't actually provided a lot of feedback or discussion about it, then it's not very helpful if you say this is stupid, right? Then you have to go into more detail.
It is worth noting that there are other games where they have kind of expert player councils that give that kind of feedback. Like I think EVE Online has a sort of player council type thing going on, and there's probably other games as well. And really, the feedback channel on the CC Discord is about the closest thing that Wargaming has to that kind of expert opinion channel of people who play the game in quite a dedicated fashion. And it's like you said, Atam, we've kind of discussed this on previous podcasts as well, that it has often in the past felt like throwing the feedback into the void, because you don't then get any feedback on the feedback, as it were. And I think Wargaming themselves saw a kind of drop off over time, and for a while they were trying to get people to, like, if you wanted access to the test ship, you had to give a certain level of feedback on kind of current test ships, sort of thing. And then they dropped that idea, I guess, because maybe it wasn't going in the direction they wanted. They just weren't getting the feedback, even with that little encouragement. So, it's like the closest thing they have at the moment is there are test ship specific missions, which it's basically a little chain of earn X amount of XP, and like usually 4 steps, and you get a couple of containers and then like 200 doubloons at the end of it. So not a major reward, but it's a little carrot to encourage people to play the ship some and give some feedback. But yeah, my days of putting any kind of super detailed level of feedback in the forms they had ended a fair while before I quit the program, just because it really did feel like it wasn't going anywhere. So if that gets addressed, if it feels like there's some kind of like at the end of or towards the end of a test phase, maybe they put up a little report of like here's an aggregate of the kind of various feedback that we got from you as CCs, and here's changes we've made in response, and here's just maybe a summation of what our data has said, and instead you just get we're making these changes, we're buffing the reload time a little bit, or we're changing these consumables around, or whatever. We don't really ever get to see any of the reasoning for that, unless we get the chance to specifically ask somebody in the Q&A channel, and sometimes you might get answered in an NDA way that you can't really then share that information. But it's still nice to at least know that it's been read and considered in some form. So yeah,
I think what they need to do is, right, they need to collect feedback for, let's say, a week, right? They just say everybody who has feedback, just post it there. And then they have someone to go through all of the points that are reasonably made, not just one-liners, but everybody who articulates a point. And then there will often be the same point brought up, right? And then answer them, right? They once a week, they collect all the feedback on this ship. They go through the major points, and then they address each one. And people are like, okay, this armor is bad because of blah, 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 right? And then but be like, okay, here is how we think, why if we think that this is okay, or this is balanced by those and those factors, or And for every major point people bring up, you just bring up their side of the story and then you have a conversation. Because as I said, you can only have an argument if both people are actually participating in it. And feedback is often like not valuable if it's like not discussed.
Yeah, and even knowing, and this is more on a general point of communication than feedback, but knowing what Wargaming's intentions are towards the ship in terms of its play style would be useful, I think, sometimes, because what we were talking about earlier with the, I did say Albemarle, but no, the new ship, the British one.
Marlborough.
Marlborough, there we go. I knew it was a similarly kind of toffish name. You look at that and we were all a bit bemused about like what's this supposed to be exactly, other than a complete shotgun. And it doesn't look that sneaky, and the HE isn't that powerful, and yeah, it's got a lot of guns, but really poor accuracy, and the reload's not that great for considering the caliber. And it'd be interesting, even if it was just on the NDA CC side, to have like hypothetically, if we were Vietnamese was still CCs, to be able to look at it and say, well, okay, this is what they have in mind for this ship, other than trying to look at the stats and then sort of haphazardly guess, because it's not always very clear. And that would then maybe inform the kind of feedback that you would then be able to give to Wargaming.
Now, I've always been of the thought, for like feedback wise and feedback and balancing wise, I've always been of the thought of taking after like one of the stronger MMOs in the world. Now, I don't know how you guys would feel about this, but balancing around the top percentages of players and having the rest of the player base adapt, because we've seen things like League of Legends take off. We've seen things like Valorant take off. We've seen MOBAs take off. What like this? What do you guys think of, like, if we're talking feedback, like what if we take the feedback from the top percentage of players and put that into how World of Warships was balanced? What do you guys think about that?
I think it would work as one point of data, but I don't think you could have it as the whole of like that in conjunction with Wargaming's own kind of hard spreadsheet data. I don't think you could exclusively use that kind of 1% feedback to shape the game, and that would be a pretty big shift for Wargaming St. Petersburg to move to that, because this isn't really positioned as like a super competitive game. And I know things like Kings of the Sea have grown up out of it, but Wargaming's own kind of push to doing anything super organized. I mean, there was kind of an idea of doing it back in 2017, 2018, and they were putting some resources into it, and then they decided that that's not where they were going to go, and now we have kind of semi-official support for Kings of the Sea.
I mean, they've bought Kings of the Sea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess maybe not having it balanced like exclusively around the top percentile, but like more often than not leaning on their forms of feedback, because Unicoms, and I'm sure some of you guys can agree, Unicoms and Super Unicoms, they see the game in a much more different, much more mechanical way than the average player. And so therefore they will see things that the average player won't. But the average player will also be more inclined to comment on feeling, or like, is this fun? So I think that like making it mechanically balanced and then allowing for leeway for players to learn would be a good thing. So not like having it like not having exclusive top percentage, but making it so that at least like all aspects are being listened to. Like mechanically, listen to the top percent, but feeling, listen to the entire player base. Like something like that. I don't know. Like it's all in theory, but I think it could potentially work.
I think
it could be a valuable source of feedback, but I don't know if I would put so much emphasis on it, of kind of leading with that and then everything else kind of further down the chain. I would maybe put it on an equal par with the kind of average player base feedback, if it was me calling the shots. But I don't know anything about this kind of running this kind of game. So
I think there are a few problems, right? Just because someone is a good player doesn't mean they haven't a subjective bias because they have the favorite line or the favorite play style and they want that to be better. So while a good player might be slightly more objective, I don't feel like just because somebody's a unicorn, they're necessarily going to be objective in the feedback. So that's something to consider. And the other thing is a lot of competitive players tend to evaluate ships from a competitive point of view, which is not really needed for a random battle, right? Because if you go into competitive, you only need the best, right? Yet the second best won't do because you're trying to win. But if you go into a random battle, balancing doesn't mean every ship is going to be exactly the same strength, because while that is nice in theory, in reality, it won't work. In reality, you always have a gap, right? You have on each, and good balancing means that the gap is rather small, right? So you'll always have a best and a worst ship at each tier. But as long as the best and the worst ship are close enough together, we call it balanced, right? And that's something that I feel like a lot of very competitive players seem to forget, that they look at this and like, what do I want to do with this, right? This is only be like the third best ship in this is garbage, right? And that's not real. Like, I mean, the ship might still be good, or it still might be fun to play. Or they're like, let's take brawling. Brawling is never going to be brawling could use a lot more love. I don't think wargaming really develops the game right for brawling, but it's a fun playstyle and it has its existence, just not in anything competitive or so on, right?
I think it's all also perspective. Like you were talking about the space between like the best ship and the worst ship, and how some people would think like, oh, that's not much of a space, but a competitive player would look at that. I think it's realistically all perspective. So I can agree with what you're saying there. Like it's like, if like we look at, like, as a competitive player, we look at like, okay, what's going to be the best, but we're also looking at, like, we're not looking at the best be all end all ship. We're also looking at the ship that is good for a situation, but we're also looking at ships that counter it. Like myself being at 007 QQ, I've seen the thought process of what goes on in like in preparation for Kings of the Sea, what goes on in preparation for a clan battle season. They're like, okay, so what is the meta going to be? And when the meta forms, and then they're already thinking, like, even when the meta is just formed, they're already thinking of ways to counter that. So I do think that, like, looking at the top percentile should be done, but maybe not leaned on as exclusively. Like, brawling is great and I miss it. I'm going to be very honest, I miss it a lot. But I do think that the top percentile should definitely be listened to when it comes to these things, because they won't only just choose the best ship, but they'll also look at other ships in order to and like gameplay mechanics to counter those best, like, in class ships and best at tier ships. Yeah, so I do think, like, they should be leaned on.
Technically, I mean, I have a 62-63% win rate, so I think that counts as a unicum. I've never been really involved in the competitive stuff. I'm just, helping along in random battles. But I feel like, or at least what I've seen, that a lot more the competitive mindset isn't really concerned with what works in random battles so much, for, like, they see things a little bit different. So I'd be careful balancing just around them, usually. And I'd also say this, right? The problem, I've had this argument, I think, with somebody a while ago, but not everybody will be ever good at a game, right? It's definitely possible for a ship to be overperforming in the hands of a bad player and underperforming in the hands of a good player, because just because some people don't understand how the mechanics work and so on. They don't see how to counter something, right? So you always have to. And then a lot of the people aren't good players and never will be, because they aren't willing to invest the time to improve. And just playing the game doesn't necessarily make you better at it, which means you have to make sure that for the average player, the game is fun. And yeah, I mean, they don't take balancing that seriously, I guess, but at least it needs to be a fun experience for them, right? And a lot of the stuff that maybe the very high-end players care about, they don't matter for like the average person. So you definitely need to take the experiences. Maybe, as you said, like, maybe they less take the mechanical view of the game, but at least take the experience into account.
Like that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, take the mechanical prowess and knowledge of the top percentile, but take the entirety of the community's feeling. Like, is this good? Like, does this feel good? Does this feel fun? Does this feel engaging? Does this feel worth my time? That view. Like, combining the two I think would be the best course of action, simply because one, you get a more intimate knowledge with the mechanics, but you also get to see like what people think about. Like, you can take the mechanics, present them to the entire community, and just see like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And then you get feedback from there, and you listen to your community, and you get a positive outcome, hopefully, if they do it right. But we all know wargaming. Oh, we listened to your feedback, but we went in a completely other direction. But I don't know, it's just a thought. Rather long thought,
I mean,
too.
we'll see what positive comes out of it. I mean, most of this section is addressing specific things. So, like aircraft carriers is like what I was saying earlier. There might be more changes on the horizon, and this is maybe why the Russian ones are being held back a bit. And they're saying some stuff that is not due till 2022. Which is going to be the old tier carriers, so that's going to be a ways off. New gameplay experiences.
Oh yeah, they're saying that there is the new convoy mode, and I think they said that there are other modes that they are testing currently.
That would be, I think, a positive thing, is to get some more gameplay content other than just new ships, which has been kind of the thing for a while now. We've had a little bit of experimentation with Clan Wars and the other thing, which I forget the name of.
And I'm still waiting for Arms Race, because it's like they have a gameplay mode. They had it for 2 years. Why aren't we getting it? Just kick Epicenter. Nobody cares about Epicenter. Replace it with Arms Race. Everybody would be happy. Why?
I agree with that. Like I mean, everybody loves being able to just hold down your mouse, your left mouse button, and on a Smolensk or something like that, it just goes. it's wonderful. Everybody loves that.
How engaging!
But now, speaking of missed opportunities with Arms Race not being put in, I'm just like, I would really like to. I'd really like to say, Wargaming, you messed up. Like, we all know how Greyhound came out last year. If they released Convoys then, and had like bot controlled submarines, like the early testing,
even if it wasn't an official tie-in,
it would have been absolutely huge, because I mean, they did the same thing for Dunkirk. That event was so much fun. But like, if they did that, like, they've just been like I'm a very marketing thinking person, and they've just dropped the ball repeatedly on so many missed opportunities, and it's just sad. Like, bring us things that we want, not things that you think we want. Like, we're getting submarines, but we need new game modes.
Yeah, in terms of the tie-ins we have had since Dunkirk, it's all been, here's a skin and maybe a voiceover, and there's not been any actual anything to go with it. Like, they could have done a whole Transformers event mode, and instead it's just some skins. They're all right skins. It could have been
like Sail the Seas of Cybertron. Like,
I mean, you could fight Godzilla in a boss battle or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that would be insanity. Just having to. All I'm thinking of now is playing World of Warships in a World of Warcraft area where you have to dodge things, like stay out of the fire or sail out of the fire. And I'm just like, how is this going to work? Do we get like 30 seconds to dodge this instead of like 5 if we're playing an MMO? Like, that would be hilarious.
Battleships get an aggro ability.
Yes, the taunts. Oh my goodness, that would actually be something to see. I kind of want to see it, as absurd as it is.
That would be a fun April 1st thing. Is it like, yeah, we're going to be an MMO RPG now, but with ships.
Oh goodness gracious!
Oh, please give us the transmog or glamour system, or however you want to call it. I mean, that's something that they could put into. That would be a good way to monetize the game, right? Like, let's just assume once you have bought the perma camo for a ship, you could change how the perma camo looks. You could like override it with a consumable camo for a small price, like say 500 doubloons. Because at first you'd need to buy the permanent camo, right? And then for 500 doubloons, you can change how it looks with any consumable camo you have, and you can keep changing that. And then for 500 doubloons, you can like remove the effect to get your look again. like monetize customization. People love customization. Make it so cheap that people want to repeatedly paint their ships differently, right? There are so many nice consumable camos in there. It's would be a win for everyone, I think.
Yeah, we touched on this previously,
100%.
but it's a big thing in other online games, free-to-play games. But like, it seems like that's stuff they've just kind of left on the plate, really.
Because they're thinking, oh, it's already been done. We want to do something new. Well, but here's the thing: you can do what's already been done, and go into something new too. You could do both. You can eat it too.
Everyone could get more out of it.
I mean, the other thing is, right, if they'd monetize customization more, they wouldn't need to push for so many new ships. That means they could take feedback a lot better into account because they would be only testing 2 or 3 ships and not 10 simultaneously, right? That means the ships would feel less rushed. They could invest more time in them, and they could meanwhile just make more money by customizing things. They could monetize, in a sense, old lines, right? They could be like, okay, we're now going to take a look at all Japanese cruisers. We're going to rework them, in a sense, right? And modernize them, like bring them up to date with the game is. And we make a month-long event with Japanese cruisers, bonus if you play them or something, right? And maybe release a new few camos with that. And by making older ships more attractive, people are more likely to invest into customization in them, like into choosing a nice camo, put a picture, sticker, or whatever on it, right? It's like once you have monetization into your game concerning visuals, it just keeps paying for itself, right? Every new tech tree ship that is potentially making you money because people want to paint it.
It's something even World of Tanks does better, to be quite honest, with how its kind of customization works and being able to.
I was gonna say, like, they paint the shirts and stuff.
Yeah, and you can put decals on your ships that you can upgrade by on your tanks by. You can actually kind of upgrade and change the visual of by playing those tanks a certain amount. Yeah. So yeah. Like World of Tanks, like if they even just literally, obviously it wouldn't be probably. It's easier to say, oh, they just copy and paste what World of Tanks has done, and you can customize how your ship looks in terms of the camo colors. It's probably a lot of work behind the scenes, but the model of how that could work is there, and obviously it does work well in World of Tanks. So
they're just leaving money on the table. It's as you said, like it's I don't know whether it's laziness or to think like, oh, we want to do something new. Like, I understand the wanting to be like cutting edge, but if you don't do something that's already been tried and tested and tried it with your community, then like, what's the point?
I think the biggest issue is it's a long-term investment that doesn't immediately pay off, but pays off tremendously over time, right? Because if you don't have the system planned for that and you make them something like making consumable camos permanent or replacing like how a permanent camo looks like, so I'm not sure how much involved it is in their code to do something like that. Certainly it would be possible. But it's something that just over time keeps giving you money, because once you have that system, it's so easy to expand on. Every new consumable camouflage you release is potentially going to make you money and so on. And it's easy to make like another sticker that you can put on your boat or another line of text or whatever. Like,
or even like War Thunder, where you have specific props, like even if you limited it to certain areas of the ship, like that's one area where War Thunder's microtransactions are genuinely microtransactions.
And it just would probably take a lot of time to develop, and then it would be a slow, like it's not like if you put a loot box in it, it's very little effort for very much gain, right? You just maybe lose people over the long run. You don't like retain them, but it's like a one-term quick cash injection. While the other thing is just gonna give you a lifetime money basically. But it's a lot harder to sell in your weekly or in your like quarterly earnings report that, oh, we have implemented this system that's going to make us so much money over the next 10 years. Because people are like, well, why don't we make money right now?
Mm-hmm. Quite possibly. So what else have we got on this section? Maps. And this is basically confirming what everyone knew already, and that there's not been any maps recently because they've all been working on making stuff work underwater for submarines, so that's not really new. Although they have said there's going to be a new map next year, at least one new map, and another one has some chances to make it in time, so potentially 2. and possibly there's going to be a new mechanic in one of these maps not previously
Yeah.
used in the game. So
Not
we'll
previously
see.
used in the game, but could this be a hint at the iceberg thing that they brought back all those years ago? Remember the destructible
Maybe,
environments?
yeah.
Maybe.
I
Things
mean,
that break off and change during the course of a game.
it's been sitting there for long enough where, like, if you do enough damage to these icebergs, they would fall off. And if they bring things in like that, then it would be much appreciated, honestly. Like, it's been in the works for a long time, so if this is what we're looking at, then I'm looking forward to it. But if it's something completely new, like, you've got me, I'm interested. I want to see what happens. Like, are we going to see rougher seas throwing accuracy, like throwing off your crosshair? Like, what would you guys think we would see?
You
I
might
don't know.
be
I mean, we
onto
kind of
something
talked
with the
last week when
icebergs.
we were looking at the. I mean, they were talking about
yeah.
reworking Two Brothers and what other map that was, and one of them's now got a volcano on it, and we're kind of having this discussion about well, if the volcano erupts during, but that's an existing map, so possibly not that, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like the rougher seas thing, that's kind of like careful what you wish for because it sort of sounds interesting in principle. But I was playing naval action back when that was still they were just like doing the stage of battle testing. When they brought in rough sea maps where it was a lot harder to aim, it had some considerable negative feedback because it really like everything took so much longer. And it was a bit more annoying. Although I have to say, once it got past that, once it got to the open world, you can just avoid the rough weather kind of thing, which you can't necessarily do when you're randomly getting thrown into a blizzard or whatever in your random game of World of Warships. So I genuinely don't know. I mean, it could be the iceberg thing. I really can't think of anything else offhand. I have to go away and think about it.
They don't have to be destructible, right? I'm just thinking an iceberg could move, right? You could have islands that just move during the battle. Wouldn't that be interesting if you had like a basically moving cover?
Yeah.
Hey guys,
that could be fun.
Bastion. Imagine if they brought back Bastion.
I try not to remember that too much, but that would be something, certainly.
Oh, goodness gracious. Bringing back Bastion. Oh, man.
For those that don't know, there was a rather briefly tested thing in was it even that brief? I can't remember, but for a while in random battles on certain maps, there was this Bastion mode where there were these AI forts that could basically be captured by each side and would essentially defend the cap circles and had to be dealt with before you could really flip the cap circles. And this is going by memory. That could be slightly or wholly inaccurate, but there were forts basically.
Yeah, they could like 3-4 shot cruisers. Those turrets.
Yeah, they were nasty. They were really nasty. So it kind of is one of those things that just kind of disappeared in the mists of time, like the going way back to when you had teams spawning at all four corners of the map in an X formation on some maps. And that was always weird and interesting. So who knows? That could be. Yeah, it would be nice to see more maps coming in. That's I think again a thing that's been kind of a long-standing complaint of people and something we can shake our fist at submarines for delaying new maps coming in. They have also addressed operations, and we also have other. Ops, I think, was something they also talked about during the stream earlier. And this has been maybe one of the more controversial things that's been put in here because consistently over time in the CC Discord, it was always, again, this was always very kind of dismissively addressed of, well, people don't play it, so we're not going to bother with it. It's not worth the effort. After repeatedly nerfing the income and repeatedly reducing the number of actual operations available, it's like, is there any wonder? We've never had operation rewards for stars like the star rewards, you know, you get them once and that's it. They don't ever reset. And the fact that income's been nerfed from these things, it's kind of not surprising that the player base dropped off, and then you restricted the number of them. And like TC3 had a big rant about this on a previous episode.
Yeah.
So it does seem a little disingenuous when they're saying, "Oh yeah, no, when they're kind of making out that, oh well, you know, this has been the plan all along, but we just had to work on making the AI compatible and updating everything." And
You know, from what they've said in the stream and how they've formulated it here, I think basically for what it sounds like to me is that for unrelated reasons, they have started overworking the AI. And now they might actually be able to bring operations back. They probably didn't have plans to do them, but they're like, you know what? We're actually already working on something that could allow us to do that, and it wouldn't be much effort. So maybe we'll just throw that in because it seems like they, even though they might have been working on a way to bring, like to make the tools to bring them back, they probably wouldn't have brought them back without the current shitstorm, right? They'd be like, you know what? We could, without doing much additional effort, just do that as well. So they're going to do it. It would be nice if they address rewards.
Yeah, and yeah, it's been a much requested thing for quite a long time now, and it's again, it's taken this stink being kicked up before Wargaming's kind of addressed it seriously. So it'll be nice to see some returning ones that haven't been around for a while. And it's the weird thing is that we've had some of the existing ones. Like there's Raptor Rescue, which still has carriers in it, and others that were taken out with the excuse of, well, you know, carriers are an integral part of it, like Cherry Blossom, for example. But I don't know. We had the carriers taken out of Aegis and battleships put in their place without too much difficulty. So it really. It just kind of felt like an executive decision was taken at some point to drastically scale back operations, and then it's kind of been in excuse-making mode ever since. So, yeah, I'm glad to see we might be getting some ops back, but we'll see what form that takes exactly. And then in this last section we have other, which is addressing some updates of old ship models, so things like US destroyers. I think they were specifically brought up. Tier 4 CV tuning, Huron, which is kind of the trying to make up for the Little White Mouse debacle ship, and West Virginia 44, which has been like that's been hanging around in the halls of promised things that have never appeared for quite a long time.
I think the Huron, like these two things, I think they're just like basically like a wait, no, mouse come back thing. Honestly, like if
she made the money, she really made the money, and I think they're now kind of like, maybe we should not have been so casual about her contributions.
Yeah, like the amount of contributions that Mouse and Chobi have put together. And Lurt, especially with little blurbs in Mouse's reviews, it's been like, I just don't understand like how, like, again, as you said, she was making wargaming money, and they just kind of like threw her aside and said, hey, like, guess what, we don't need you anymore. And now they realize that, like, now that people aren't able to make informed buying decisions and they're kind of just going in blind, they're more hesitant because of what they've done monetarily in the past. Like, Mouse was a huge resource, and a lot of her reviews, as detailed as they were, like, I'm like, some people will say, oh well, she's not the best player. Like, well, she doesn't need to be the best player. She literally spent 75% of her time in game in training rooms, getting the dispersion for us, getting the turret angles for us, the exact turret angles and like how far they would go. And given that some of her reviews may have been I guess less popular, like the Salem review, Meth Boat, by the way, Salem's very strong. Like, Mouse, her work, it like just the way it was thrown aside is it's ridiculous. And to me, like, the Huron and West Virginia in this very section is just, it's just like, hey, wait, come back. And as far as I know, I think wargaming is still, I'm not sure if actively chasing her is the thing to say about it, because I know she has been vocal about Sale talking with her.
Mhm.
I honestly, I think it comes across as like a mea culpa more than anything else to me. Like if they really were genuine about making amends with her rather than kind of doing a public apology gesture, which I think the Huron in particular is, they'd have just put the damn Sackville camo in.
Yeah.
And Sub Octavian would have gone, yeah, okay, we'll put the Sackville camo on Yukon. And Little White Mouse wouldn't have then quit because he wouldn't commit to doing that. A camo which had already been made for them. It was all there ready to go, and they just had to put it in the game files.
Which is it's ridiculous how they couldn't even just do that.
Yeah.
It felt like really maybe they kind of want to, but they really didn't want to give up everything. They really didn't want to make, even though it was totally all their fault. They didn't want to admit it, and they didn't want to go to, okay, yeah, we now have to make up for this. They until the bitter last, they tried to not give in to her concessions. I think, even though I don't think they understand how the policy works. They went in with negotiations, and they were like, we are never gonna give you all that you ask for, because I don't know. It just felt like they went into a business negotiation where they're like, we can't just surrender. We have to get something from us through. I don't think they understand how an apology works.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where
the thing they would have gotten
comes in too.
Was decent PR. Well, decent-ish.
Yeah.
And instead, it's really blown up in their faces.
And I mean,
they've had to be dragged kicking and screaming in the right direction.
The West Virginia coming 2023. When was it promised? Was it like 2020? They promised originally that it would. Forgot the year, but it's been a while. Like West Virginia, they lied when they said they were putting it in, and now it's coming in 1.5 years. I mean, it does take 1.5 years to develop a ship, right?
That just goes to prove that they literally did not care. They did not do anything.
Yeah, they didn't even start on it, and they won't even start on it right now, because I'm pretty sure it won't take 1.5 years to make West Virginia, right?
Oh yeah, they've had to slot it in the pipeline, and so it shows that it definitely wasn't in the pipeline already.
But it also shows that they aren't willing to move. Like, that's the way their apologies works. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll apologize, but only if it's convenient. Like, wait, move something around that we've delay a ship that nobody has ever heard of, that nobody expects, that would cause absolutely no trouble. No, we can't do that.
I think it was 2018, so it might have been 2018, early 2019, because I remember when it came out that there was some disappointment about it being not its late war
41 version
build. Yeah. And that's how we ended up getting it labeled as the 41 version, with the promise that there would be a 1944 version at some point. Instead,
they just didn't care about it at all.
The less they know about California, the better.
And as someone said in chat, they have half the ship there already. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Like it's like wargaming. It's just one mistake after another. And the thing is though, like when I went to their studio in St. Petersburg all those years back, I actually saw how they decide how to go through ships. They have this huge whiteboard of amazingness, and there were names there that I can't see, but like I'm pretty like it's already past like 2-3 years, so like all the ships have either been scrapped or released, but there's like this very specific like way they go about it, and it's just so ridiculous how like they're like, oh, we have this, we could just slot this into here and modify it. Like you could just modify the model, create some values, and boom, you're good. Put it into testing. And what I'm basically saying is it's so overdone. It's they need to simplify it. Everything is just so overly complicated for them right now.
Yeah,
it's they're making it harder than it is, and it's painful to watch.
They need a bit more flexibility, right? It can't be that you have like the next 1.5 years planned on releases and you can't even slot the ship, move anything around. They feel like, when you start a battle in World of Warships and there's this battleship, and that battleship decides to go on the left flank. And 2 minutes into the game, you see there is nobody in the left flank. The destroyer is in there camping and spotted, and the battleship keeps going towards the left flank, even though all enemies are on the right side. And this battleship just sails into the left flank, then doesn't even sail right through the cap, but sails like out to the outer zone wall around an island. It's like when they start the game, it feels like the battleship driver is locked in his course. He goes to the left flank, he looks at the minimap, and he's like, "Oh, no enemies on the left flank. Well, a shame, because I've already, clicked on the left side, so I guess I'm keep going there now."
It's like he autopiloted and went to go flip some burgers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when they start the battle, they decide, this game I'm gonna go left flank, and no matter what happens, they're gonna go left flank. They're like, oh wait, there is no enemy on the left flank. Well, should have chosen differently maybe, but now it's too late. I've already started going. Can't turn a ship around.
It does kind of speak once again to a somewhat inflexible management style.
Yeah.
Just kind of been a hallmark of a lot of what's been happening, I think. So, but we have been going for so long, and we've still got this last third of the page to cover. So, communications!
I mean,
we actually have been going long enough that I need to take a quick trip to the bathroom, but you guys can start on that.
Oh,
I'm sat here drinking my glass of water.
Let's take a look and see what they said here.
They said they're going to rework the community contributor program in a sense. Basically, they want to just take a look at it and update the program, and they don't know themselves how this is going to look. So we all just have to wait and see what happens.
I mean, they better start treating people. They better start treating their CCs with more respect, because, like,
yeah,
when my personal interactions with Sub Octavian, or the ones that I've seen. There's one thing I've learned about Sub. He's a very ego-driven man, or that is the idea among a lot of people who have interacted with him. He can be a good guy if you meet him in person. I've met him in person. He's just a pretty decent guy in person, but like when you interact with him on Discord, you can tell that there's that cultural disconnect, and he is quite ego-driven, and that's what's kind of pushed us to where we are now, like the future of the game and the community contributor program, where our feed, like, we feel like I'm assuming you've also like looked into, when you were part of the program, you looked into the feedback NDA channel, and you see him saying things that he would a high schooler would say, like trying to like start a fight, like trying to antagonize, right? Did you ever see those?
I mean, let's just say that overall, I'm not saying I'm not entirely sure who in Wargaming answered how exactly, but I'll say this, right? Generally speaking, the way Wargaming answers is often very antagonistic, and I think I've mentioned on this in the past. I'm not sure if this is a communication barrier or not, or if it's just because I feel like their style is just generally to assume you're wrong, right? If you provide feedback, or if you get into a discussion with Wargaming, the first answer is no, you're wrong, right? They have read what you wrote, or maybe not, but it's like the default answer to anything before they look up anything, before they give you 2 seconds to think about it. It's like, no, you must be wrong, because it's impossible that we are wrong. And that's what makes the whole feedback and whole communication process so problematic, because it's just a lot of disrespect they show, and they not sure they realize they show disrespect, because I'm often not really sure if they realize just how they treated the people, because they are just so dismissive of everything, and they just go about everything with like, we know everything better, or at least that's how they come around. It's also like in the Q&As and so on, even if they take a look at something, right? Even somebody brings up, hey, this ship might need a buff. If they were willing to say, okay, we'll go back, we'll check the data, and we will come back at you. But they will never say that. They will say, no, you're wrong. And then they go back and check the data, and then they come back and, we have re-evaluated the data, and we have found that maybe there is something to be done. People are, but why did you say we are wrong in the first place? And they're like, no, misunderstand, miscommunication. It's like, it's just their default answer is always, you're wrong. Even if they are willing to take a look at it, they don't admit that they're willing to take a look at it. They're just, you're wrong.
Like, I guess what it was like, sure, wargaming was more antagonistic and like as a whole, but to me, what I saw from Sub Octavian was he made it more personal. Like he was like, it wasn't like, oh, you're wrong. It's like you're wrong. Like from what I saw or what other people experience is like you're wrong and you're stupid. And it was that kind of thing where it was like, okay, like you're making this person feel really small right now. Like you are totally out of line. Like it was unprofessional. It was completely unprofessional with the way he acted towards some people. And I'll fall on and say that I don't care if this gets back to him. Like, dude, you have some serious things to address, and you got to be a nicer person. Like, we understand that you have a company to run, but that doesn't mean you can't be nice. That doesn't mean you can't talk to people like they're human beings. But again, it's the miscommunication, the word of like the month, and the cultural disconnect, which I feel like is just ridiculous. As you said, they talk to us like we're automatically wrong, where our opinion doesn't matter. So it gets to the point where we have all these people like you and I are like, why do we even bother leaving feedback if you're just going to talk to us this way? So with that being said, I do hope that the CC rework, as they've kind of quoted it here, goes over well and that they take a step in the right direction.
I mean, it comes back to the more above point about the feedback, right? If they actually start listening to feedback and involve like PCs in the discussion again, you see what I said earlier, as long as you can have a discussion, and I don't mind being proven wrong. I have no problem with that. If I have an opinion and they can show me that I'm wrong, I'm absolutely fine with that. I have a problem if somebody just tells me you're wrong and refuses to explain themselves, because then I feel belittled in a sense. It's like, you're wrong. And you're like, why? You're just wrong. Like, seriously? This is where we're at, right? So if they can incorporate feedback more, if they can actually have a discussion, if they can talk about things, right, then a lot of this bad feeling, this negativity would go away. I think.
And then for, I guess, the I don't know, did the PhD get back? Does he have any 2 cents here?
I think he's distracted by a cat.
Important business. Yeah, I think. I mean, honestly, the program is like even now as it stands, way better than before the big reorganization in 20 whatever it was. 2018, was it 2019? No, it probably would have been 2018, maybe in 2017. And it's been pretty good overall, but it obviously has gotten kind of more frustrating, or certain things have gotten more frustrating over time. So I'll be interested to see what exactly they come up with specifically to address that. Because at the moment, this is more just a statement of we're going to change some things and we're figuring out what.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very vague.
Yeah.
No, if they listened to feedback, they could get positive feedback on how to improve things.
Imagine using oh yes, but imagine using your ears. It must be a cultural thing, not using your ears.
No, I mean, like, they need to possibly have people, but I feel like what I've said earlier, if they, for example, they make a specific channel for each ship that's, for example, in testing, then once a week they have, or they collect all the feedback, then once for a week they go through it and take the major points that people make and address, for example, why they changed it or why they don't change it or what their thought process is behind it, right? That's, for example, improving communication, and people would feel taken seriously. They'd feel like their feedback matters, and we would get in a lot more positive in the program. And I mean, it would have positive effects on the game, because if they'd actually read that stuff and address it and you have a proper conversation about it, then the ship balancing would be better, right? People would be happier. It's like, it's just simple things like that, right? They might need more staff for that, because that's obviously additional work to go through, right? And they'd need to take the time to actually address those issues and, to talk with people. Also, something that, I mean, somewhere in there, I think they said something about a roadmap, right? Because CCs and other people have asked that, can you give us a roadmap? Can you tell us what you're working on? Can we get any idea of what's going to happen? Vogan was like, no, we can't share that. We can't share that. We can't tell you a roadmap. And now I think somebody said like, oh, we know what's a good idea. Maybe we should give you guys a roadmap. Almost
And
as
like-
if somebody told them, right?
Exactly. Like it's almost like, It's almost like, you know, in the cartoons when someone comes up with an idea and they're like, oh no, that's dumb. Wait, I have this great idea, and it's the same thing. I've come to think that wargaming is quite literally just in a simulation, and we are just here we're just here, and we're just here to experience like the I guess the troubleshooting phase, which is in all things just like the entire like thing. Like this is just a big troubleshooting experiment. Slightly terrifying.
Speaking of troubleshooting, you know, they later addressed with general transparency that why they fixed the CV bug basically in a day and why they can't fix the torpedo bug in 2 months. And they said because it's like with in-game logic and this is just a much more complicated problem to fix. And even though it technically is fixed within a week, it had to go through all the regular quality assurance processes and so on. Quality assurance. But the thing is, it just reads to me like their prioritization processes or like a lot of their thinking processes, right? What they don't understand is that people play this game every day. And if something affects the gameplay negatively, it's affecting them every day. And wargaming just usually doesn't see this as a big deal as long as the game, I guess, works in total. They don't seem to understand that 2 months is a very, very long time for something to be broken that actually affects your enjoyment of something, right? 2 months is longer than a lot of people play a game in total, right? And wargaming is like, well, I mean, you know, this things take time. Yet that's where prioritization comes in. That's why most companies prioritize fixing bugs, or at least good companies, right? If they release something and it's buggy, they'll be like, okay, we will delay this DLC because we first need to fix those bugs, right? Or we will focus now for like 2 weeks on fixing those bugs. That's how most companies handle it, because they know they want to get a good gameplay experience to the people. While wargaming is like, we come back to, I think, like they are not very flexible. They'd be like, well, but our timetable doesn't say we fix a bug. Maybe we can slot in the bug fix 2 months from now or 3 months from now. Then we have somebody available. We're like, yeah, couldn't you fix? No. That you see that's there on the whiteboard, right? It doesn't say bug fixing. We can't change that around, right?
And
For some reason, I was thinking heavily of CDPR while you were talking about that. All that stuff.
oh, Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Has it been fixed yet? Probably not.
They had a big update recently, and then they published.
Yeah, I mean, they had a lot of
stream
big
about stuff. Yeah, I think they're at 1.3 now, and then they've got a roadmap of like the free DLC stuff is coming. And anyway, that's a whole other topic, though.
It is a much more enjoyable game now. Like everything runs better. I've got a 3080 Ti. I tried it out, and it was very much so enjoyable. So once everything gets redone, I would definitely recommend going back into and playing it if you've already played through it. But that's the thing for another day. So
I played like 200 hours of Cyberpunk.
Only.
it's a very fun title. But like,
so what else is there on this list? I mean, communications quality is again a thing they're kind of addressed above as well.
I mean, it's basically just the whole thing about we want to communicate better in general, and they go into a few things there. And
that's a whole thing where it's like actions will speak louder than words. Like we'll see. We'll believe it when we see it.
It all, like, I mean, the whole message, that's a properly written message as you'd expect. That's a good answer. And if they actually stick to what they're saying, then this is actually a very good step in the right. Like the whole long post there and all of the points they make, right? If they actually mean it this time, this could be very good for the game, right? This is exactly what we were hoping to get. Now they've made the appropriate noises. Now it remains to be seen if they stick to them this time, because they don't have a good track record with the promises.
I think that's a lot of us of the CCs that left. I mean, everyone had their own kind of specific individual reasons, but I think most of us wanted something positive to come out of it. We weren't all quitting and saying, "Yeah, I want the game to burn. I want it all to burn." and,
I mean,
and
some of us
wargaming
did.
to go under and everyone to get fired. No, we want the game to improve. We want the game to be
Yeah.
better. We want the game to be fairer to its players and its customers. So it's just, as I've said before, it's a pity it took drastic action to get there. But this is all a positive thing ultimately.
Yeah.
If they can stick to it, if they mean what they say.
I mean, again, this is basically just going to be like okay, you know what? You've made this message. This has got them. As I said earlier today, it looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. But is it a duck? That's the one thing we just need to wait for.
Yes.
That's it. Like, well, now we just have to wait to see if this thing is actually a duck. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think the statement made was it's a good show of faith, or it's a good statement, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's something like that is what we were hoping for, right? Now, if they stick to it, then this all will actually have a happy ending, which would be lovely. We'll see. I mean, how they address it, and I'm already curious how Christmas loot boxes will look this year. Put it like this.
I do have one question. I mean, I feel like we're getting towards the end here of the stream generally, and Lord knows this has turned out to be a monster one. But is there anything we feel wasn't addressed that could have been? Any changes that they've skipped over that
Come to think of it,
would have been nice to see?
I mean, there wasn't really anything that I don't think wasn't addressed, but honestly, I would like them to I would guess they would have said that the accusations were false because there was that article that was floating around about the EU doing an investigation and then NA offices doing an investigation for money laundering. So what I'm guessing there is that they didn't go out and deny those that was happening. So I don't know whether that is a true or false thing, or sorry, we're jumbling, but I'm guessing that if they didn't talk about this, then there must actually be some form of legal issue going on that they can't actually speak on the situation. So, because if there wasn't one that was going on, then I would have thought they would have been okay, hey, these accusations are false, blah, blah, blah. Because honestly, that's a huge concern for me. If it's even alleged, that's something that should be addressed.
But I mean, there was this Reddit post that dived pretty deep into it and basically debunked the whole stories. I don't think they took them seriously enough because they never reached any serious newspaper to actually address them.
Yeah,
and I don't think as a company, if there are some dubious rumors on some dubious sites, you just ignore them. I wouldn't fault them. Because they looked a bit spotty, and after there is a pretty good Reddit post. I'm not sure if you've ever read that, but somebody dove pretty deep into this, and it looks like this is all just basically made up. There is no substance behind it.
It probably would be one of those things where it would be better to just not address it because it's kind of if you do address it, if you issue a strong denial, it's like, oh well, they're covering something up.
You can look guilty if you feel like, of course we are not money laundering, right? Everybody is like, why do you have to stress that?
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that there wasn't a
situation.
There was. Oh well, actually, I did know there was a Reddit post, but I didn't know which one it was addressing because there's two cases, right? So that's why I was concerned.
It turns out that it all points to one source, and everybody was just copying from that one source, and it's all not.
That makes sense.
And that person dived pretty deep also into the global money thing, and I don't think global money is even a corporation in that sense. I think it's a made-up thing, and there have been no actual ties with that Wargaming ever used a company like this to process the money and so on. It's like it took a pretty deep dive, but it was a very thought out Reddit post where somebody really went deep, and it looks like there is no basis to it.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, cool. But anyways, yeah, I don't think there was, other than that, I don't think there was anything that they really missed.
The one thing I might pick out would be there's been some discussion recently of CV spotting, and I know there was some discussion of that in the CC Discord prior to everything going down, and like that might have been nice to see that addressed.
There was one thing that I would have that I think they were missing, and we spoke about it before. Like regarding the CC rework. It's like, hey, like we like when the time is right, we would like to leave this as like an open letter to those who did leave the CC program, and if they would like to come back after they see change, then that can happen. Because that would have been like okay, you know what, that would have been a sign that like, hey, we care about our creators and we want to make sure that we keep good relationships with them. I think that would have been a good open letter to address, so that it's out in the open. They could see like, oh, hey, we care about big names like the Mighty Jingles. We care about, and like all the small names, like we care about all the people who left. Like this Discord that Atam and I are part of, like every single name there, like all these people that have either left or were thinking of leaving, and didn't leave but are supporting. Like just having that there would have spoken words like, hey, we care. Let's work together, like something like that.
It has been notable that very few people have been reached out to in any kind of direct fashion.
Like, I think there was iChase and Mouse or a few of the other NACCs said that they got a copy paste, and the EU guys didn't even get anything. You guys didn't get anything, right, Atam?
No,
You guys didn't get,
I certainly, I know I haven't, and I don't know if you have, Atam, but no.
I mean, basically, when I left the program, I sent a message to Conway and to Jonai, just telling them that I leave, because I felt like they have answered with thanks for letting us know, and basically best wishes and so on. But it's all right. They've basically answered just my message.
Like, it didn't say like, oh, we're gonna look into like what's going on here. Like,
no, there was nothing like. But I mean, they were kind of overwhelmed then. But what I mean, it would be nice if they reach out. We will see. Like they said they're going to rework the program now, right? It's entirely possible that they first wanna see what they can offer, what they change, and then they reach out. So, I mean, obviously, ideally, after so many people left, they would have reached out to them personally and collected maybe some personalized feedback on what is, and then be like, okay, we will look into it or address it or in any way. That would have been the ideal. But right now, they at least say they are committed to reworking the program. And obviously, they don't have any concrete plans yet. So we will see. I mean, maybe in the future, once they have something to actually tell people, they will offer a stake, or maybe they won't. Maybe they are just happy that a lot of people that were so critical are gone. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, finally, the feedback channel is now not so much nice.
I wouldn't know about nicer, because there are still a few people left.
Yeah, but it's a lot less traffic, I suppose, there.
That's also very true.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the rest of September brings as regards that then.
Yeah.
I guess it'll be certainly something we'll be discussing in future podcasts, that's for damn sure. So should we wrap things up? I think this is possibly our longest one to date, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty long.
Talk about.
Yeah.
There was a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess we can wrap it up. Thanks for joining us, ViirtualSenpai. It has been a pleasure. It's
been an absolute honor to come on this with you guys. Like it's like, this was a lot. Like I'm not gonna lie, so we've been sitting for maybe 2 hours 40 minutes, and I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
Oh.
It's 2
I'm already at the beer stage.
See, I wish I was there. But I gotta go find some food. I am hungry. Like, thank you so much, Flo, for having me, and I'm hoping that maybe one day we'll get to do this again. Have some fun, sure. And I can talk some ship, you know.
Definitely. Yeah.
But yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.